Chapter 2099 9-Colored Yin Soul Jade. Chapter 2099 9-Colored Yin Soul Jade. Wang. When the Yin Soul Jade crashed into the foreheads of the two women, their speed slowed down slightly. Then, the jade sank in directly, astonishingly quick. Both the Empress and Hu Niu's body trembled, their bodies beginning to flow like glazed glass bodies of bright light as multiple seals of great Tao leaped out, dazzling in their brilliance, and added with their exquisite beauty. This scene was really hair-raisingly beautiful. Everyone naturally watched with carefree and relaxed spirits, and were even more curious exactly what grade of Yin Soul Jade these two women had stimulated. According to the difference of depth of the Yin Soul Jade, there were a total of 10 different grades. Ordinarily, Yin Soul Jade of 5 stars and above belonged to the range that only King tiers could obtain. They are both top-grade monarch tiers, and even if they had not succeeded the previous few times, if they compromised a bit, they would still be able to obtain a very precious Yin Soul Jade. If you ask me, it's probably 9 stars. 10 stars is not possible, so it's probably 8 or 9 stars. 8 stars. After all, it's already been 5,000 years, so they must have compromised quite a few times, so there is no way that it would still be 9 stars grade. Everyone was curious, but they were not very optimistic about the two women. But what they did not know was that the two women were perfectionists, just like Ling Han. They naturally wanted to find the absolute best Yin Soul Jade within the range of their limits. Right. They had been stimulating the same Yin Soul Jade throughout these 5 millennia, and their hard work paid off. They had succeeded. Neither woman moved. Instead, they began to split out a portion of their spirit which they inserted into the Yin Soul Jade, which would be refined into their second divided soul. Now this was fast. In a mere 3 days' time, they had already condensed their second doppelganger, and the heavenly tribulation immediately came as promised, beginning to wreak havoc above their heads. At first, the heavenly tribulation could see, and would absolutely not strike those that should not have been struck, but the heavenly tribulation experienced by the two women was more frightening. Lightning swept over the mountain rock and ricocheted, still carrying a very frightening might of lightning. Even the slightest contact with it would cause serious injuries, or even death. Thus, everyone fled in panic, staying as far away from the two women as possible. Thankfully, the two women did not want to disturb Ling Han, either. They both exited the valley before experiencing their heavenly tribulation. Otherwise, a great many people would actually not have been able to flee in time. Half a day later, the heavenly tribulation dispersed, and the two women had successfully advanced to Yin Soul tier. In the first place, their aura was captivating, and now that their strength had advanced further, their might was naturally even more shocking, such that others did not even dare to look at them directly. Haha, Niu's going to fight 10. Hu Niu howled in excitement. Meanwhile, the Empress's eyes were set on the skies. She also had an enemy, and that was Ji Wuming. She had always been prideful, but Ji Wuming had repeatedly beaten down on her and Ling Han, so the Empress naturally had a lot of anger built up, determined to get her own back. As for Ling Han was still sitting unmoving. He was still contesting with that king of Yin Soul Jades, but 5,000 years had already passed, and he had not had the slightest bit of progress. To a gigantic embankment, to say nothing of a small fish crashing against it 5,000 years, even 500 million years could possibly have no effect at all. Yet Ling Han still did not give up. He knew that there was still a gap between himself and Ji Wuming. In a situation in which the latter did not have his divided soul, they still could battle to a tie. If both of them were in their strongest state, Ling Han probably wouldn't be able to match Ji Wuming. Then, Ling Han would have to do his utter best at every stage. First, the divided soul that he condensed would definitely have to be the strongest. Second, he had to gain the source power of Earth so that the might of the great clash of source powers would be improved further. If he couldn't do it in 5,000 years, then he would just have to give it another 5,000 years, or 10,000 years. He definitely could not do something that he would regret for his whole life because he desired victory. 6,000 years, 7,000 years, 8,000 years. Time passed quickly, and batch after batch of new people entered into the Yin Soul Valley, but Ling Han's legend was still continuously being spread. After all, he was just sitting there right next to the pool, so who could overlook him? 9,000 years. Ling Han did the same thing day after day, and that was using his divine sense to crash into the Yin Soul Jade. When he himself was incredibly numb, he actually crashed headfirst into it with a wang. Inside the Yin Soul Jade. At first, he hadn't even realized it, but when he thought of retreating and making another attempt, realization suddenly dawned on him. Success. He had succeeded. With a move of Ling Han's divine sense, Xiao, this Yin Soul Jade floated towards the surface of the water at a shocking speed. Merely in the blink of an eye, splash, it had shot out of the pool in the form of a streak of light, flying towards Ling Han's forehead. Ling Han naturally wouldn't dodge. There was a sliver of his divine sense inside the jade, and that was a part of him, he naturally would not hurt himself. Heavens, this Yin Soul Jade, it's too huge, isn't it? It's at least 10 times the size of mine. What do you mean by 10 times? It's even more than 20 times, alright? 9-colored light flows from it, how could this be possible? That's right. Shouldn't Yin Soul Jade only have one color? Those in the valley were exclaiming in shock as they grabbed their heads. This Yin Soul Jade that Ling Han had stimulated had broken through all their perceptions. The Yin Soul Jade sank into his mind, and Ling Han did not hesitate in the slightest. He immediately began to channel the Shenyin source water, which entered into this precious jade. The soul fetus was formed, and was rapidly being incubated. A short 3 days later, Ling Han's body trembled, and a figure suddenly leaped out of it. It was his Yin Soul, the second divided soul, which could also be called the Shenyin source water divided soul. Quang, thunderclouds gathered densely in the skies. The heavenly tribulation had arrived, keeping up with the times. Ling Han released a battle cry, and sped out of the valley. His heavenly tribulation would definitely be extremely terrifying. As expected, a bolt of lightning struck down on him the moment he stepped out of the valley. It was like an incredibly wide divine dragon, planning to blast him to death. Ling Han strolled idly. His strength and physique had far exceeded the level of Yin Soul, and while his heavenly tribulation was more frightening than for other Yin Souls, there was still an upper limit to its strength. After all, the heaven and earth were merciless, and considered all beings equal, so how could they deliberately make things difficult for Ling Han? This time, he did not destroy his own godly bones. As his cultivation level became higher and higher, it was also harder and harder to destroy his own godly bones, and if it was merely being tempered by lightning, it would be very hard to achieve the effect of strengthening it further. You can use the source power to strengthen them. Small Tower suddenly piped up. Ling Han had long since gotten used to its habit of either staying mute, or giving a scare when it suddenly spoke up, so he was not surprised. He asked, I only have 4 source powers of heaven and earth. Can I still do it? The regulations of Earth are more inclined towards defense in the first place, so if you want to boost your physique to the maximum, the source power of Earth must be gained, Small Tower said. Ling Han nodded. His great clash of source powers needed the source power of Earth, and now he also needed it to improve the strength of his physique, which increased the urgency of this idea. Because he was thinking, he became absent-minded as he was dealing with the heavenly tribulation. Carelessly brandishing his fists, the bolts of lightning were sent randomly in all directions. Someone screamed. That was a person that had been accidentally hit by the lightning that Ling Han had blasted flying, and shouted in pain. Stupid brat, don't you have eyes? Where are you hitting them? That was actually a bright-looking and beautiful girl, who was presently frowning and glaring furiously at Ling Han. She had been slightly scraped by the aftermath left behind by the lightning. Thankfully, it was really just a slight scrape, or with her cultivation level of 3rd severance, she would definitely have been blasted into dust. Ling Han smiled, and said, Sorry, when I finish my heavenly tribulation, I will make amends for it. Chapter 2100 Future Daughter-in-Law. Chapter 2100 Future Daughter-in-Law. Experiencing the heavenly tribulation was only a small matter for Ling Han. After half a day, the dark clouds in the skies dispersed, and fair weather returned though there was no sun in the skies. It was only studded by countless stars eternally. The heavenly tribulation had passed, which also meant that Ling Han had truly advanced to Yin Soul tier. Bastard, how are you going to compensate me? that bright, beautiful young girl yelled out. She did not lose her courage just because Ling Han was a yin soul while she herself was only a third severance. She was like a little tiger. Ling Han, the Empress, Hu Niu, and bewitching maiden Ru all raced over as well. Meanwhile, Xiao Jiyu was still bearing that endearingly silly expression. To say nothing of a mere 9,000 years having passed, even if 9 trillion years passed, he probably wouldn't change much, either. Be beautiful, big sisters. The bright, beautiful young girl's eyes involuntarily lit up as she stared at the Empress and the others, no longer caring to call Ling Han to account about how he had brought disaster to befall an innocent passerby like herself. Yi, who is this? Bewitching maiden Ru asked curiously. This damn man was really quite powerful. He was just undergoing a heavenly tribulation, and he still managed to hook a little girl while he was at it. So shameless. Why don't you come and seduce me then? Beautiful big sister, my name is Chen Shuangshuang. The bright, beautiful young girl jumped up immediately, and then looked at bewitching maiden Ru with a besotted gaze. Big sister, can I hold your hand for a bit? Seeing her perverted expression, the Empress and the others were all surprised. If this little girl wasn't indeed a genuine woman, they would definitely think that she was actually a man pretending to be a woman, and deliberately trying to take advantage of them. She looked at bewitching maiden Ru with the pitiful eyes of a puppy, as if she would break into tears the moment bewitching maiden Ru shook her head or expressed refusal. When Xiao Jiyu spotted someone new, his mimicking interest immediately soared, and he also looked at bewitching maiden Ru pitifully. Beautiful big sister, my name is Chen Shuangshuang. No way. Bewitching maiden Ru immediately stomped. Though Xiao Jiyu looked exactly the same as Ling Han, and though he was only a bone, how could her hand possibly be held by another man? It definitely couldn't. Big sister, Chen Shuangshuang dragged out her words in a whine. Big sister, Xiao Gu's interest did not diminish. Chen Shuangshuang couldn't help but become furious. It was all this guy's fault for butting in that this beautiful big sister was not willing to let her hold her hand. He was so extremely despicable. Little girl, just say what kind of compensation do you want? Ling Han asked, smiling. Who's a little girl? Chen Shuangshuang planted her hands on her hips. This was just a good opening for her to vent her anger on Ling Han. My age is much greater than yours, all right? Indeed, her flame of life had burnt for a few million years, and she was indeed older than Ling Han. However, not only was she older than Ling Han, she was also older than the Empress and bewitching maiden Ru, and she actually addressed bewitching maiden Ru as big sister so shamelessly, and without feeling the slightest bit embarrassed. Ling Han chuckled. How about I pay you some star stones? No way. Chen Shuangshuang shook her head. She took out a herb sack. I have gotten a mission from the sect, and have come here to collect numbing clouds mushrooms. However, I was just a bit away from finishing the task when the aftermath of your heavenly tribulation swept onto my herb sack, and as a result, the numbing clouds mushrooms inside were all destroyed. I want you to compensate for my numbing clouds mushrooms. Ling Han looked towards the three women, and the Empress said, just compensate with some star stones. She was incredibly proud, and it was already kind enough of her to be willing to offer a compensation of star stones. Just kill her directly. Hu Niu's vicious nature was on full display. She quite enjoyed scaring others, but sometimes, you couldn't tell if she was really just giving you a scare, or really planning to kill. Bewitching maiden Ru was just about to speak up when she saw Ling Han raise a hand in her direction. Never mind about your opinion. Fuck. Bewitching maiden Ru was irritated. This damn man, she really wanted to bite him to death 10,000 times. Big sister, this man does not cherish you in the slightest, so you should leave him quickly. Chen Shuangshuang took the opportunity to pull the rug out from under his feet. Never mind, we'll just go with you to pick some more numbing clouds mushrooms, Ling Han said. Don't speak in such a wronged way. This is what you should have compensated me for in the first place. Chen Shuangshuang was really a hot-tempered little girl. Let's go then. They began roaming around in the dark forest. Though numbing clouds mushrooms was a specialty of this place, it was not found everywhere. Moreover, there were an extremely large number of people who had come to collect it, so a little time was still needed to gather one. Miss Chen, which sect are you from? Since there was nothing better for them to do anyway, bewitching maiden Ru began chatting with her. Big sister, I am from the heavenly Saint Palace, Chen Shuangshuang immediately answered. Ling Han was startled, and suddenly turned, asking, You are from the heavenly Saint Palace? What is it? Gotten a scare? Chen Shuangshuang was pleased with herself. The heavenly Saint Palace was an 8th heaven celestial king tier force, and even in the entire celestial realm, it was practically one of the highest grade existences. Ling Han was internally excited. Then do you know someone named Ling Jianxue? His precious son had been sent to the heavenly Saint Palace, and this was what Hunyo had told him. Yi, how do you know of junior brother Ling? Chen Shuangshuang looked at Ling Han, head tilted to one side. Oh, I get it. You found out that junior brother Ling has recently become a core disciple, and thus wish to become his follower, right? Become a follower of his own son? Ling Han couldn't help but show a strange expression, and said, Your imagination is really quite active. Yet Chen Shuangshuang thought that she had guessed correctly, and proudly declared, Then you have to work hard on gaining my favor because junior brother Ling always listens to me. Is that right? Ling Han asked casually, and then shot a look at the Empress. The Empress got his signal, took a step forwards, and said, Talk about yourself and Ling Jianxue. Chen Shuangshuang was immediately bewildered. She liked beautiful women, not because there was some problem with her sexual orientation, but rather as she liked anything beautiful, and beautiful women belonged to this category. But the Empress and Hunyo were both too beautiful, so beautiful that she felt pressured. She only dared to peek at them secretly, and did not even dare to strike up a conversation with them. Now that the Empress was asking her a question directly, her little heart was beating wildly and erratically, so excited that she almost passed out. However, with the Empress's repeated questioning, she finally recovered slightly, and spoke of the matters between herself and Ling Jianxue. Oh. When Ling Han and the others heard this, they immediately understood. As it turned out, Ling Jianxue liked this senior sister of his, but Chen Shuangshuang was a little too casual, and had not realized the affections that Ling Jianxue bore towards her at all. She thought that the two of them were just fellow sect disciples that were merely closer with each other. With such words, the gaze that Ling Han directed at Chen Shuangshuang changed. This was his future daughter-in-law. Oi, what's that look in your eyes? So strange. Chen Shuangshuang got a scare. Let me warn you, don't even think of having any designs on me. That would be absolutely impossible. Why? Ling Han asked with a smile. Could it be because of that junior brother Ling? Humph, even if I didn't have 10,000 adorers, I would have 8,000. I don't like a cunning guy like you. Chen Shuangshuang expressed her disdain. This damn man actually seized 3 beautiful big sisters all on his own, which she was extremely envious of, so she naturally did not have the slightest liking for Ling Han. Ling Han laughed loudly. Though this daughter-in-law was a little thoughtless, and her tastes were rather strange, she had a good nature, and did not have any profound ideas, either, which made him very pleased. Again, I say, can you not look at me in such a strange way? Chen Shuangshuang exclaimed in displeasure. Ling Han raised his clasped hands, and said, Fine. I'll just avoid looking at you, all right? When this little girl found out he was her father-in-law in future, what kind of expression would she have? Just the thought of it made him amuse. Ling Han suddenly discovered that he was also a mischievous character himself. Chapter 2101, Sun's Rival in Love. Chapter 2101, Sun's Rival in Love. That's right, since that junior brother Ling of yours clings to you so much, why don't I see him accompany you here? Ling Han asked. Don't bring it up. This guy recently offended someone, and is presently being reprimanded. Chen Shuangshuang shook her head, showing an expression of anger. What's the matter? Bewitching maiden Ru hurriedly asked. This brat, he's so stubborn and hard-headed. He has clearly already become a core disciple, and if he gave it some more effort, he may even be able to enter into the ranks of holy sons. Furthermore, the granddaughter of Grand Elder Jiuhua has also set her eye on him, and has the intention to marry him. But what did this brat do? He actually refused. Chen Shuangshuang's expression was filled with indignant fury at his lack of drive. This stupid brat, Even if he was going to refuse, he could be more tactful about it. But what did he do? Not only did he refuse directly and immediately, he even said that he has someone else that he likes. So stupid. And now what? Grand Elder Johua is already angered, and commanded that he be imprisoned, saying that he would only be released when he changed his mind. Sigh, so how stupid can this brat be? As Chen Shuangshuang spoke, she kept looking at bewitching Maiden Ru, her expression very colorful. Ling Han and the others exchanged looks, the same thought rising up in their heads. You're the stupid one here. For your sake, Ling Zhenxue did not hesitate to offend a Grand Elder, yet you are still calling him stupid. Sigh, they had never seen as great a blockhead as she was. Ling Han sighed, and said, he is truly a silly brat. To actually fall for such a careless, simple-minded girl. They roamed around in the dark forest for 7 days, and gathered many numbing clouds mushrooms. They were only missing one more, and Chen Shuangshuang would be able to complete her mission. We're finally almost done. I'm so tired, Chen Shuangshuang panted. Actually, with her cultivation level of 3rd severance, how could she possibly feel tired? She was just putting on an act. Shua, shua, shua. The bushes ahead of them suddenly began to shake. There's a wild beast. She immediately became alert. Shua, the bushes separated, and a young man in white robes walked out. He was quite good-looking, with a lanky build and a cultivation level of 4th severance. Junior Sister Chen, this white-robed young man immediately called out. Chen Shuangshuang was startled. Yong Xiao? Yi, why are you here? Oh, I have also gotten a mission to gather numbing clouds mushrooms. I never thought I would so coincidentally meet you here, the white-robed young man, Yang Xiao, replied with a smile, but there was clearly a sliver of self-satisfaction in his eyes. Not only had he deliberately accepted the same mission as Chen Shuangshuang, he had also sacrificed a great amount. He had dripped some dew liquid on Chen Shuangshuang, which provided guidance for him, allowing him to chase her all the way here. Just when he was about to catch up to her, he then circled around to be ahead of her, and pretend that it was a coincidental meeting with her. What a real coincidence. Chen Shuangshuang was too careless, and did not doubt him in the slightest. Ling Han saw this, and with a thought, a killing intent rose up in his heart. That little brat, he actually dared to target his son's wife. However, he immediately suppressed this killing intent. Chen Shuangshuang was not an object that belonged to anyone, so it was natural that anyone could start courting her. Success or failure would depend on their respective strategies. Of course, if Yang Xiao was going to do anything underhanded, he would definitely move without mercy. Yi, Junior Sister Chen, these 5 are. What Yang Xiao had not expected was that Chen Shuangshuang was actually not alone, but was rather with 5 other people. Furthermore, 3 of the women among them were captivatingly beautiful, being so exquisite that he almost lost control of himself. Oh, they are all junior brother Ling Zhenshue's relatives, Chen Shuangshuang said. This was the honest truth, but a careless person like Chen Shuangshuang had not asked just what kind of relation they had with him. Junior brother Ling's relatives. Yang Xiao's eyes roamed over Ling Han and his group, yet could not tell anything from their appearance. He was only a 4th severance, and it would truly be a strange thing if he managed to distinguish the depths of dividing soul tears. So you are junior brother Ling's relatives. He clasped his hands in greeting. Though his tone was very polite, his animosity was clearly revealed in his eyes. It was only Chen Shuangshuang that did not know that Ling Zhenxue was fond of her. For her sake, he had even rejected the granddaughter of a grand elder, and this almost caused Yang Xiao to die of jealousy. If it was him, he would definitely accept happily. Grand Elder Johua was a celestial king, and a 3rd heaven celestial king at that. If he could become his grandson-in-law, his future prospects would definitely be boundless. Why wasn't it him? Additionally, Yang Xiao also thought that Ling Zhenxue was too stupid. If it was him, he would definitely agree first. There was no rule that said a man could only marry one wife. He could absolutely hook up with Chen Shuangshuang in the future instead. Junior Sister Chen, I have already completed my mission. What about you? Yang Xiao pulled his attention back. Since he did not have the good luck that Ling Zhenxue had in romance, he could only concentrate his focus and energy on Chen Shuangshuang. Though this girl was careless and simple-minded, her natural talent in cultivation was very high, and she was also pretty. She was the best candidate for his Dao partner. I'm still missing one. Chen Shuangxuang sighed, and slanted a sideways glare at Ling Han. If it had not been because of this guy, she would definitely have been able to finish her job too by now. Then let me accompany you, junior sister, Yang Xiao quickly offered. Sure. Chen Shuangxuang accepted without hesitation. If it was only Yang Xiao, she would still hesitate for a while, but since there were also Ling Han and his group with them, she wouldn't worry about having Yang Xiao with her. Just the two of them alone was definitely not something allowed. Ling Han stroked his chin as his gaze roved over Yang Xiao. It was naturally not right to kill him just because this person was his son's rival in love. However, while killing him was not right, they could still mess around with him. How should they give him a hard time? As a father, he had missed his son's growth, and being unable to stay by his son's side for so many years, Ling Han did not mind doing some protective actions for the sake of his son. This was how willful a father could be. Another day later, they found the final numbing clouds mushroom, and completed the task. In the meantime, Ling Han and the others also caused trouble intentionally, ruining several of Yang Xiao's attempts to become close with Chen Shuangxuang, causing this guy to feel great resentment. Now, this guy completely believed that Ling Han and the others were Ling Zhenshua's close relatives. Otherwise, why else would they be so proactively ruining the pleasant matters between himself and Chen Shuangxuang? Damn. After a day had passed, he had already tolerated Ling Han and his group, especially Ling Han, enough. Thankfully, now that the mushroom gathering mission was completed, he and Chen Shuangxuang would be returning to the Heavenly Saint Palace, and they could then go a separate way with these 5 people. There was no further need for him to worry that when he was courting Chen Shuangxuang, a tree would suddenly collapse, the earth would suddenly crack, or a wild beast would suddenly scuttle out of nowhere. We're going to the Rock Palace, which is on the way as well. We can separate once we reach Rock Heaven, Ling Han said smilingly. Sure. Chen Shuangxuang was immediately excited. She could have a few more days to see the 3 beautiful, fairy-like big sisters. Yang Xiao's expression darkened completely at this, though. His eyes became menacing as he wanted nothing more than to skin Ling Han alive. Haven't you guys caused enough harm to me? You guys still plan to pursue us and continue to cause trouble? Once or twice, 1 to 2 days, and he could still bear with it, but if you guys had no sense of propriety like this, he could not continue to tolerate it, either. Humph, did they really think that he was a pushover? A killing intent rose up in him. Ling Han definitely had to be killed, but as for these 3 women, with how beautiful they were, it would be too much of a waste to just kill them like that. Then, he would capture them first. If they agreed to become his women, he would spare their lives. Otherwise, he would rape them and then kill them. His heart set, he immediately revealed a smile, and said, the close relatives of junior brother Ling would be my own close relatives. I want nothing more than for you guys to spend a few more days with us. Chapter 2102, The Old Pattern of Playing a Hero to Rescue the Beauty. Chapter 2102, The Old Pattern of Playing a Hero to Rescue the Beauty. Ling Han chuckled. This person's hypocrisy really could not be more obvious. He did not care, though. In any case, he had already decided to make things difficult for this guy, so he could put on a fake act as much as he liked. They exited the forest, and began heading towards the Rock Heaven. Lu Herong did not appear, because Hunyo had already used a secret technique to communicate with her, and said that their group would be heading directly to the Rock Heaven later, so there was no need for her to worry. Originally, it was impossible for Lu Herong to agree, but she suspected that a traitor had appeared within the Rock Palace, and she, as a celestial king, was instead a bigger target. If Hunyo went with Ling Han on one path, and Lu Herong went on another path, the latter would definitely be able to draw away an extremely large amount of the Four Seas Palace's attention. Paving the path for Hunyo's return to the Rock Palace. Ling Han was the heir of that lord, so she still had considerable trust in Ling Han's ability to ensure their safety. And precisely because of this, Lu Herong did not appear again, but instead followed them from the shadows. When they were about to reach the Rock Heaven, she would leave alone to draw away the attention of the Four Seas Palace. There was no need to rush their journey to the Rock Heaven. Instead, There was a transference portal that crossed heavens which could save a great amount of time. There were not many such transference portals that crossed heavenly realms, because only ninth heaven celestial kings that were versed in the regulations of space could set them up, and there were not many such beings in the entire celestial realm. The rock heaven was named after the rock palace, which showed how prosperous and powerful the rock palace had once been, that they had been able to occupy the territory of a whole heavenly realm. Unfortunately, the source beast, the rock, had long since disappeared in the passage of history, and the last imperial empress of the rock palace had died in an ambush, and they were presently undergoing trial and hardship. Perhaps the rock heaven would be changing its name after a few more epochs. On the journey, Yang Xiao continued to show off, relating the history of every place they went. He did have skill at this, being able to tell a story in a pleasant and captivating manner, and fascinating his listeners, and Chen Shuangshuang would continuously nod at this. Ling Han saw all this happen, and thought that if he did not hurry up and deal with Yang Xiao, his daughter-in-law would be gone. Thankfully, Chen Shuangshuang was not just insensitive towards Ling Jianxue alone, but was the same towards everyone. Seeing Yang Xiao to curry favor with her so obviously, anyone with the slightest bit of intelligence should have been able to distinguish his intentions, but she only laughed and chuckled cheerily, being astonishingly insensitive. True, if it could have been settled with just some sweet-talking, Ling Jianxue would have long since sweet-talked her into becoming his wife. Why else would there be so much hassle? Over a dozen days later, they arrived at Wind Capital City, and found an inn to stay in. They would wash away the dirt from the journey, and set out again after some rest. The transference portal that crossed heavenly realms was located in wide Western City, which was at least another month's journey away from here. At night, Yang Xiao departed quietly. He had previously come here before, and befriended a gang of scoundrels. And now, it was time for him to make use of this connection. Ling Han broke into a faint smile. The Xianyin source water divided soul walked out from his body, and tailed Yang Xiao, while his original body continued to play mahjong with the Empress, Hu Niu, and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. Meanwhile, bewitching maiden Ru was serving tea and water from the sidelines, completely behaving like a little wife. Wind Capital City was also a large city. Yang Xiao flew all the way, crossing mountains and seas, and after more than 6 hours, he finally arrived at a small village. Young Master Yang, Young Master Yang, Young Master Yang, long time no see. When they saw Yang Xiao, the villagers all greeted him respectfully. He was an heir of an 8th heaven celestial king tier force. He only had to say one casual word, and their vicious bear gang would be completely destroyed overnight. Yang Xiao bore a slightly reserved smile. In the past, when he had come to Wind Capital City, a conflict had risen up between him and the vicious bear gang because of a minor matter. However, when the gang leader of Vicious Bear Gang, Xiong Sai, found out about his origins, he immediately brought valuable gifts to him as settlement for their dispute. Xiong Sai was a young soul elite, yet lowered himself to address Yang Xiao as brother, which made the latter feel very respected, and they had also gradually become good friends. "Is Brother Sai here?" he asked. Yes. A gang member hurriedly led the way, bringing Yang Xiao to a manor. Very soon, they arrived at the main hall, and there was presently a show of song and dance. A banquet was presently being held. Ha 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 ha, my dear brother Yang. A tall and well-built man walked forwards to greet him. He really was like a vicious bear given human form. It was the present master of the Vicious Bear Gang, Xiong Sai. He spread out his arms to embrace Yang Xiao. Brother Sai. Yang Xiao also spread out his own arms to greet him. The two men exchanged a greeting hug for a while, and then released each other. My good brother, why do you have time to see your brother Sai today? Xiong Sai asked with a smile. There is a matter that I would like to ask for your help in, brother Sai. Yang Xiao was not reserved, either. Though Xiong Sai's cultivation level far surpassed his, he did not have much reverence towards Xiong Sai, because the former was only the leader of a gang of scoundrels. Even if he was strong, so what? How could he compare to Yang Xiao, who was a proper and noble disciple of a great sect? If you have trouble, go ahead and tell me. As long as it's doable, brother Sai would definitely not refuse. Xiong Sai clapped a hand on his chest, displaying a heroism that reached to the clouds. It really is just a small matter, Yang Xiao said. He smiled. I like a girl, but that girl doesn't seem to have much affection towards me yet, so I would like to ask Brother Sai to help me arrange a good show of the hero rescuing the beauty. Haha, I understand, I understand. Xiong Sai laughed loudly, patting Yang Xiao's shoulder. All beautiful women love heroes. I will definitely send out someone to perform as perfectly as possible so that my dear brother can put on a majestic and mighty display as a hero. If there was some other scene, it would be even better. Yang Xiao considered for a moment. For example, the people that Brother Sai sends could drug that girl with some aphrodisiac or something. Fuck, this guy was really quite despicable. Xiong Sai thought this in his heart, but the smile on his face became brighter. Sure. Of course, no problem at all. Yang Xiao showed an expectant expression. Tomorrow, when Chen Shuangshuang was assaulted by the evil tyrants, he would interfere when she was in the most danger, saving Chen Shuangshuang, which would definitely make her heart beat faster for him. And afterwards, when the aphrodisiac took effect, he would pretend to use all sorts of excuses, yet in the end, the matter would be settled, and then it would be too late to change anything, so how would he need to fear that Chen Shuangshuang wouldn't be dead set on him in the future? To deal with this kind of insensitive woman, there was definitely a need for extreme measures. Ling Han stood on the roof. This divided soul was manifested from the Shenyin source water. When he withheld his aura, he would be no different from a drop of water. To say nothing that there were a few young souls beneath him, even if there was an immortal Palisteer, there was no way the latter could discover his presence. So that was the case. Ling Han chuckled, and changed his plans of charging downstairs to eliminate a vile character like Yang Xiao. It was better for him to let Chen Shuangshuang see clearly the latter's true nature. With such a comparison, she would be able to tell how valuable Ling Jinshua's fondness for her was. Sigh, he was really going to a lot of trouble for the sake of his son. Ling Han turned, and he soon disappeared without a trace with a leap. My dear brother, I have recently obtained a secret technique, and have been thinking of finding a time to contact you so we could study it together, and it just so happened that you have come today, Xiong Sai said. Oh, what kind of secret technique? Yang Xiao asked carelessly, not taking it to heart at all. What kind of secret technique could a gangster actually have? Yang Xiao was an heir of the Heavenly Saint Palace, and any celestial technique that he had would be considered a supreme secret technique by countless other forces. Xiong Sai chuckled. He could see the other's disdain, but did not refute this. He only said, this secret technique can allow one's battle prowess to instantly soar 10 times over. What? Yang Xiao immediately leaped to his feet, appearing incredibly stunned. A 10-fold boost of battle prowess, are you kidding me? Chapter 2103 A Dark Secret Technique. Chapter 2103 A Dark Secret Technique. It was not that Yang Xiao had never come into contact with secret techniques. There were some secret techniques that could allow one to experience a burst of 3 to 4 times their usual battle prowess, but all those required you to induce self-harm, or would cause very great aftereffects in your future. But a boost of battle prowess by 10 times was too much. There was no secret technique that could accomplish that. Brother Sai, you're kidding, right? Yang Xiao asked. If there really existed this kind of secret technique, it would be much, much too awesome. Xiao Cheng. Xiao Cheng waved a hand. Immediately, a youth walked out, and cupped his hands in obeisance towards Xiong Sai. Lord Sai. Xiong Sai nodded, and asked Yang Xiao, you know of Xiao Cheng, right? Yang Xiao nodded. Xiao Cheng was that person that had entered into a conflict with him all those years ago. Though hundreds of thousands of years had passed since then, it was as if it had just happened yesterday to him. Hihi, why don't you guys have a spar? Xiong Sai asked with a smile. Young Master Yang, please. Xiao Cheng took a few steps back, and went into position. Yang Xiao revealed an arrogant expression. At that time, he had only just advanced into the 4th severance, and Xiao Cheng had stagnated at 4th severance for who knew how many years. He had polished his battle prowess to an incredibly strong extent, but even then, so what? He had still been defeated at his hands. That was because he was a king tier, and was invincible among his peers. Presently, he had reached the peak stage 4th severance, and it was even more impossible that Xiao Cheng was a match for him. He only needed 10 moves, no, 3. Within 3 moves, he would be able to suppress his opponent. A possibility flashed through his mind. Could it be that Xiao Cheng had taught Xiao Cheng the secret technique to increase one's battle prowess? How could this be? If even such a character like Xiao Cheng could learn such a profound secret technique, what justice was there left in this world? He thought thus in his heart, and also slowly went into position as well. Then let's exchange a few moves. Xiao Cheng immediately moved. He shot out a punch, and there was no wave of regulations, yet it was like a darkness was approaching to swallow him up, possessing endless might. What? Yang Xiao was shocked, and hurriedly shot out his own fist to greet the incoming strike. Peng! The 2 fists crashed into one another, and a shock wave surged out from where the 2 fists collided, spreading out in all directions in the main hall. Xiong Sai chuckled, and pressed out with his right hand. Wang, a massive sphere of darkness appeared, trapping all the impact from this shockwave within. Wang, energy surged out madly, but the dark sphere was still not destroyed. He was a Yin Soul super elite, so it was naturally no big deal for him to disperse the shockwave from a 4th severance level battle. Ting, ting, ting. Both Yang Xiao and Xiao Cheng took 7 steps back consecutively, and then steadied their footing respectively. In this exchange, they had come out in a tie. Yet Yang Xiao paled in shock. How could this be possible? There had clearly been no changes to the other's cultivation level. He was still at the peak stage 4th severance, and it was impossible that he could suddenly acquire the aptitude of a king tier. If he really had had that kind of natural talent, he would have long since been taken in as disciple by some great sect. Wouldn't that be much better than being a local tyrant and scoundrel here? But why had Yang Xiao only managed to battle his opponent to a tie? Hundreds of thousands of years ago, he was already capable of suppressing the other, and now he had reached the peak stage 4th severance. Logically, he should have been able to easily overcome his opponent, but why had they come out in a tie now instead? A 10-fold boost of battle prowess? This could allow an ordinary cultivator to become a king tier. Then if he learned it, would he be able to make the leap from king tier to emperor tier? His heart beat wildly. If he was an emperor tier, he would be able to become a core disciple, and if he was even more powerful, and leaped into the ranks of monarch tiers, there was a chance that he could become a holy son. Holy son. The moment he thought of these words, his scalp had become numb from excitement. What disciple did not want to become a holy son? This was a symbol of status, and also represented supreme glory, and was also a recognition of strength. As for anyone that became a holy son, as long as they could continue living, there was not one that did not eventually become a celestial king. Xiao Cheng charged over again. Peng, 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 peng. The 2 men continued to battle intensely. Yang Xiao discovered to his shock that Xiao Cheng had indeed increased his battle prowess by 10 times. No, it was more than 10 times. Furthermore, there seemed to be no limits, unlike ordinary secret techniques, such as it could only take effect for a short period of time. Stop, Xiong Sai called out loudly, pressing down his hands, and both Xiao Cheng and Yang Xiao stopped. My dear brother, how is it? Xiong Sai looked at Yang Xiao smilingly, looking like he was absolutely certain that the latter would bite the bait. Yang Xiao's heart beat wildly, and he could not care any longer about whatever pride he should have as the disciple of a great sect. He hurriedly exclaimed, Brother Sai, please teach me. Xiong Sai was internally pleased with himself. Though 4th severance was not even worth a mention in his eyes, he still felt very pleased when having a disciple of a great sect to adopt such a humble attitude in front of him. He clapped a hand onto Yang Xiao's shoulder. My good brother, what relationship do we have? Whatever I have, I will naturally share with you. Thank you, Brother Sai. Yang Xiao was really quite grateful. He had never realized that the leader of a gang of scoundrels could actually be so pleasing to his eyes. Actually, the cultivation of this secret technique is very simple. You only have to believe in a deity, Xiong Sai explained calmly. As simple as that. Yang Xiao naturally did not believe it. If my dear brother does not believe me, you can immediately try it. However, let me be frank. The matter of this secret technique definitely cannot be told to another person, Xiongxai said solemnly. Yang Xiao nodded, but he did not take it seriously. Wasn't that natural? If he possessed such a secret technique, how could he possibly teach it to another? He would definitely monopolize it. Only an idiot like Xiongxai would actually teach it to others. Had his head been kicked by a donkey? Come, dear brother, come, let me first bring you to pay your greetings to the honored statue of the deity. Xiongxai slung an arm around Yang Xiao's shoulders, and they left. Yang Xiao had been gone for 3 days and 3 nights, and it was only on the morning of the 4th day that he returned. Chen Shuangshuang was naturally curious where this senior brother had gone, but Yang Xiao only said that he had been to a gathering of friends, gotten drunk, and forgot about the time, and that was his explanation for his absence. Ling Han felt a little strange. Hadn't this guy already arranged his plans to put on a show of playing the hero to save the beauty? Then, he should take advantage of the opportunity so that things wouldn't be too late. Why had he disappeared for as long as 3 days? At first, Ling Han had thought that after he returned, Yang Xiao, too, would return not too long later. If he had known, his divided soul should have stayed there for a while longer. Come, junior sister, let me bring you somewhere fun. Then, we will set out to return back to the sect tomorrow, Yang Xiao said smilingly, a darkness hidden within the depths of his eyes. However, it was concealed very, very well, and even Ling Han, the Empress, and Hu Niu had not discovered it with their insight. It was unfortunate that Xiao Jiyu was not here, as he had gone to find someone new to mimic. Otherwise, he would probably be able to tell that something was off. Chen Shuangshuang could not refuse Yang Xiao's enthusiasm, and thus agreed to go together. They went to a valley. It was completely filled with blue mulberry trees, and looked like an expansive blue ocean at first glance. It was indeed very beautiful, and even the Empress, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, and bewitching maiden Ru liked it very much. Hu Niu naturally was the unusual one. She was yawning in boredom. She would rather eat a few more chicken drumsticks than waste her time here. What was so fun about this? Weren't they just blue tree leaves? Just at this moment, the mulberry trees swayed, and 7 men all dressed in different styles walked out of the forest. When they discovered the Empress and the others, their eyes immediately widened as they stared. Such beauty, too beautiful. TSK, TSK, TSK. No wonder I have heard the magpies cry the moment I woke up this morning, so there would indeed be something pleasant happening today. Among the 7 people, a young man dressed in green robes clapped his fan as he surveyed the Empress and the other women. Of course, his focus was placed on the Empress, Hu Niu, and bewitching maiden Ru. After all, the 3 women were the most beautiful, and their features were also the most distinguishing. The rogues were here. Chapter 2104, Adding Drama. Chapter 2104, Adding Drama. Yang Xiao understood the situation. It was time for him to impress. He was the first to step forward, afraid that Ling Han might seize this opportunity instead. If Ling Han stepped forward, how could he impress anyone? Even though these 7 people all looked unfamiliar, just how many people were in the vicious bear gang? Thus, it was only natural that he didn't recognize all of them. What are you people trying to do? He chided. What are we trying to do? A young man asked with a wanton chuckle. He peered at the Empress and Hu Niu, and replied, We're obviously here to do these girls. Ha 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 ha. The 6 people behind him all roared with laughter. Good one, young Master Bing. Even a casual remark from young Master Bing is golden. This is a remark that can go down through the ages. Wonderful, wonderful. The 6 people fervently sucked up to young Master Bing, causing him to feel extremely smug. Ling Han was slightly astonished. Things seemed slightly off. He unleashed his divine sense, sending it far into the distance. A smile then spread across his face. Interesting. He pushed aside any thought of stepping forward and using violence. At the same time, he faintly shook his head at the Empress and Hu Niu, gesturing for them to remain calm. The Empress and the others had indeed felt the urge to lash out. This person actually dared to speak such vulgarity before them. How could they not be enraged? However, since Ling Han had gestured for them to remain calm, There was definitely a reason for this. They would endure this for a moment. Humph, you actually dare to harass innocent women in broad daylight? How truly audacious, Yang Xiao said with an ice-cold expression. However, he couldn't help but give them a thumbs up in his mind. As expected of a gang of thugs. They didn't need to act at all, since they were naturally thugs. Young Master Bing's expression suddenly darkened, and he mused, "You're very arrogant, huh? You actually dare to utter nonsense before me?" "Exactly. Do you know who young Master Bing is? His identity will scare you to death. Forget about it. Just kill him and be done with it. After all, young Master Bing has developed an interest in those beautiful women." "I'll do it." A man stepped forward. He was dressed in grey, and his clothes looked extremely ordinary at first glance. Upon closer inspection, however, one would realize that his clothes weren't ordinary at all. The soft glow of a formation pulsated, and this was definitely a treasured item of clothing. "Brat, die!" the man roared as he threw a punch. Yang Xiao felt even more grateful toward Xiong Sai. His fourth brother was truly willing to invest. In fact, he had even prepared such valuable clothing for a mere thug. Their acting was far too realistic. These thoughts flashed through his mind, yet he didn't hesitate at all as he lashed out in response. Peng, peng, peng. An intense battle broke out, and it wasn't long before Yang Xiao gained the upper hand. Moreover, this was an overwhelming advantage he had. They were both at the fourth severance, yet Yang Xiao was a king tier, while his opponent was only an ordinary cultivator. Thus, the gulf between them quickly became evident. Yang Xiao was feeling extremely smug at this moment. He was truly enjoying this performance. Just look. How incredibly mighty he was. Peng. His palm strike struck the man in the chest, sending him stumbling backward. At the same time, he even gave a meaningful blink, seemingly saying, "Brother, your performance was fairly great. When you return, fourth brother will definitely reward you well." Oof. The man groaned as he retreated 30 steps before finally coming to a stop. There was a salty taste in his mouth, and when he wiped his hand across it, he saw blood. "Guier, what's wrong?" the others asked. The man was enraged as he pointed at Yang Xiao, and shouted, "This person is a freak. He was making eyes at me." "What?" The thugs behind young Master Bing were all transfixed with shock. Making eyes at a man? Just how much of a freak was this person? "Guier, he even touched your chest just then," some exclaimed in alarm. Guiyer's face turned green with disgust as he clutched his chest. "Indeed. Why did he insist on striking my chest? There were so many other places he could have targeted. Freak." Meanwhile, Yang Xiao was also feeling completely stumped. This wasn't part of the plan. Why were they calling him a freak? What the fuck? The Empress and the others finally came to a realization at this moment. They communicated with Ling Han using their divine sense, asking, "These people aren't from the Vicious Bear Gang?" "No, they're not," Ling Han replied with a shake of his head. "The people from the Vicious Bear Gang are still making their way over here, but I've already sent a divided soul over to cause some trouble for them. They won't arrive anytime soon." He had sent his 9 heavens flame divided soul over, and with its grasp of the regulations of time and the regulations of space, those severing mundane tier thugs were guaranteed to be trapped there for a long time. Moreover, even though time would have slowed down for them, they wouldn't realize it at all. "So, these 7 people are genuine thugs then?" Bewitching Maiden Ru asked in astonishment. "Millimeter Chem." Ling Han smiled as he nodded. Things were getting a little interesting now. "This person is fairly strong. We need to send Brother Jun over to deal with him." The thugs all turned around to glance at a relatively short man. He looked to be in his 30s, and his appearance was extremely ordinary. However, even young Master Bing became slightly more respectful as he said, "Brother Jun, please deal with this person." The man nodded, and replied, "Since young Master Bing has asked, I naturally have no reason to refuse." He strode forward as he said this, and flashes of light appeared on all 10 of his fingers. Surprisingly, there was a ring on each of his fingers, and these rings were all as pitch black as ink. Yang Xiao suddenly tensed up. He could feel an overwhelming pressure exuding from this person. He couldn't explain what was going on. This was simply his intuition as a king tier. Fuck. This is only a performance. Is there any need to be so serious? If you want to live, kneel down and beg for forgiveness, Brother Jun said in a calm voice. He cracked his knuckles as he said this. Yang Xiao wore an arrogant expression, and he immediately immersed himself in the performance again. I, Yang Xiao, have never begged for forgiveness. Immediately apologize to my junior sister and the four ladies. Otherwise, I'll have you understand the terror of my rage. You're seeking death, Brother Jun said with a sneer. Whoosh. With a flash, he charged toward Yang Xiao. He's only an ordinary fourth severance cultivator. Yang Xiao was slightly astonished. He had clearly felt overwhelming pressure from this person, so how was the latter only an ordinary fourth severance cultivator? Yang Xiao didn't dare to be careless, and his hands immediately spread open as he unleashed a celestial technique. Boom! The power of regulations surged, and the power of the great Tao collided. However, how could an ordinary fourth severance cultivator rival a king tier? Thus, it wasn't long before Brother Jun was also pushed onto his back foot. However, young Master Bing and the others didn't appear worried about this at all. It was as if they held unwavering confidence in this Brother Jun. Yang Xiao also found this to be understandable. His opponents were most likely putting on this demeanor to amplify the effects of their performance. By the looks of it, he had indeed been overthinking things. This person most likely possesses a divine fetus. Poisonous fetus, the Empress added. Detestable. Hunyo said in disgust. Poisonous fetuses were also a type of divine fetus. However, they were an extremely unique type of divine fetus. Divine fetuses can also come powerful or weak. His divine fetus is far too weak, so he can most likely only launch a single strike with it. Thus, he's waiting for an opportunity, Ling Han said as he observed the battle. Anyhow, it's almost time for victory and defeat to be decided. Yang Xiao had already become impatient. After all, his might could only be highlighted if he achieved victory in 2 or 3 exchanges. So, why in the world were they dragging this battle on for so long? He roared in fury as he abandoned his defenses and lunged at Brother Jun. After abandoning his defenses, his offensive power naturally rose by an explosive amount. Boom! He was like a tidal wave as he bore down on Brother Jun. Explode! Brother Jun roared. He wasn't fazed in the slightest. In fact, a faint smile spread across his face. This was a smile of extreme ridicule. Pa, 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 pa. The rings on his fingers exploded, causing plumes of green smoke to flood the surroundings. At this moment, Yang Xiao finally understood the source of his discomfort. This green smoke was definitely brimming with extreme poison that could instantly kill or severely wound him. In any case, he definitely had to avoid this green smoke. Fuck. This is completely different from what we agreed on. How in the world are you people performing? Why are you randomly adding drama for yourself? Do you still want to stay in the gang or not? Chapter 2105 I've made a mistake. Chapter 2105 I've made a mistake. However, Yang Xiao had rashly charged forward, and he had even abandoned all of his defenses. That being the case, how could he dodge now? But I've sacrificed my defense to unleash this attack, so how are you going to block me? You were clearly meant to make me the hero, yet you're making this into a loss for both sides. Just what in the world are you doing? Yang Xiao couldn't help but roar at the lack of professionalism of these people in his mind. What the fuck was Xiong Sai doing? Hadn't they already discussed this several days ago? Yet, he had still sent such amateurs over to perform today. Peng! Yang Xiao's palm was quicker than the green smoke as it struck Brother Jun's chest. Initially, he had only wanted to wound his opponent. After all, this was only a performance. However, in his fit of rage, he didn't retract much of his power, so his attack would definitely deal severe wounds to his opponents. Yet, when his palm struck, Brother Jun's chest instantly became extremely soft and flexible. Yang Xiao was deeply astonished as he stared at Brother Jun transforming into a puddle of green liquid. A fragrant sweet scent wafted into his nose. This was a scent that could immediately render people unconscious. Poisonous physique, he immediately exclaimed in his mind. This was a type of divine fetus, a very rare type at that. So that's how it is. He finally came to a realization. His opponent had purposefully drawn him to launch a rash attack so that he could unleash his poison to attack him. Meanwhile, he would also rely on his divine fetus to deal with his attack. This divine fetus was extremely weak, yet it was still more than enough to deal with his attack. As for Yang Xiao, his situation was as miserable as could be. Fucking hell. You people are taking this performance far too seriously. No one told you to fight with your life on the line, okay? You people are far too unprofessional. You were clearly meant to be defeated by me, so why are you turning around to defeat me instead? Peng. Green smoke licked over, completely engulfing Yang Xiao. When the green smoke passed, Yang Xiao had already collapsed to the ground. His entire body was convulsing, and he appeared to be suffering immense pain. My poison is called Silent Death and Extermination, and this is a corpse poison that I extracted from the corpse of a celestial. Those who are affected by this poison will be engulfed in an aura of death that renders them immobile. Even if they wish for death, they'll have no way to die. Only after suffering immense pain for 3 days and 3 nights will they transform into a dry corpse, Brother Jun said in a calm voice. His body had already returned to normal. It was just that he had gone slightly pale. The power of his divine fetus was truly very weak. Thus, unleashing an attack with it had also drained all of his power and put significant stress on his body. He felt extremely unwell at this moment. Motherfucker. Yang Xiao couldn't speak, so he could only glare at this person in fury. What's the meaning of this? What the fuck is the meaning of this? You were meant to perform, yet what the fuck are you people doing now? You even unleashed the silent death and extermination on me? Exterminate your entire fucking family. These people were far too unprofessional. When he returned, he would definitely protest to his fourth brother. Senior brother Yang. Chen Shuangshuang exclaimed. Her mind was kind of slow, and she only came to her senses at this moment. Because Yang Xiao had enjoyed an advantage the entire time, she hadn't expected that he would collapse so suddenly. Ha 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 ha. Young Master Bing roared with laughter. How is it? Does anyone else refuse to yield? He stepped on Yang Xiao's head, and he even pressed down with his foot, causing Yang Xiao's head to slightly deform. Senior brother Yang. Senior brother Yang. Chen Shuangshuang exclaimed in concern. This wasn't because she liked him, but because they were from the same sect. She hurriedly turned to Ling Han, and said, Please save my senior brother. Ling Han smiled in reply, saying, It's no big deal. His skin is thick, so he won't die from this. Yang Xiao almost fainted in anger. Was this a problem of dying or not? This was far too humiliating. Perhaps these fools had made a mistake and mistaken Ling Han for him? So they were waiting for Ling Han to step forward to save the beauties? Fuck. Where are these fools from? They're fucking blind, the lot of them. Tap, tap, tap. There was the sound of hurried footsteps as 9 people crawled out from the blue mulberry forest. Like young Master Bing and the others, these people were all radiating with the auras of thugs. All they needed to do was write the word thug on their foreheads to complete their get-up. Oh, what beautiful women. Let this brother her. The 9 people immediately started to harass the Empress and the others when they arrived, yet they couldn't help but feel astonished when they saw Yang Xiao lying on the ground. Why was the protagonist lying on the ground? How could they still continue this performance? Even though Yang Xiao couldn't move, because he was facing this direction, he could still see everything clearly. Of these 9 people, he could recognize at least 4 of them. Moreover, their leader was none other than Xiao Cheng. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. Fuck. I've made a mistake. The 7 people just then weren't from the vicious bear gang at all. They were genuine thugs. Fuck. No wonder they were so violent and ferocious. They weren't acting at all. Gasp. He couldn't help but draw another cold breath. Since that was the case, Wasn't he facing the danger of death in young Master Bing's hands? He was acutely aware of just how domineering these young masters were. They wouldn't bat an eyelid at killing people. If he revealed his heavenly Saint Palace identity, these people definitely wouldn't dare to touch him. In fact, they would even fall to their knees in terror and beg for forgiveness. However, the problem was that he couldn't speak at all right now. He couldn't unleash his divine sense, either, and he was much like a living corpse. The people from the vicious bear gang faltered. What in the world was going on? The performance had already finished before they arrived. Moreover, the protagonist had been defeated. Hurry! Hurry up and save young Master Yang, they hurriedly shouted. They then charged forward to face off with young Master Bing and the others. A smile spread across Ling Han's face. He turned to Chen Shuangshuang and said, "Look, he has heaps of friends. He doesn't need our help at all." Young Master Bing humphed and said, "Who are you people? You dare to act with such audacity before me? Who gives a **t about you? Hurry up and release young Master Yang," Xiao Cheng shouted. "You actually dare to refer to someone else as young master before me?" Young Master Bing said with a humph. "I'm very angry, and the consequences are very severe." He paused for a moment before continuing in a baleful voice, "Kill them, kill all of them, as you wish, young master." The thugs behind him immediately lunged forward. However, Brother Jun stepped back. After using the power of his divine fetus, he was now in an extremely weak and frail state. His battle prowess was far inferior compared to before, so he naturally couldn't participate in this battle. "Die! Save young Master Yang!" Xiao Cheng and the others roared. They drew their sabers and swords as they charged forward. Cling! Clang! A chaotic battle instantly ensued. These people were initially meant to be defeated by the heroic protagonist, yet with a shake, they had become the heroes trying to rescue the beauty. This was an incredible transformation. Interesting, how very interesting. Ling Han retrieved a few wooden stools from the Black Tower. He handed them to the Empress, Hu Niu, and the others. At the same time, he even retrieved some sunflower seeds to snack on. Chen Shuangshuang was dazed upon seeing this. "You people are far too calm, no? Everyone's fighting right now, and so be it if you don't help. Yet, you're snacking on sunflower seeds as you watch on? Do you still care about other people's feelings? Don't worry, take a seat," Ling Han said as he retrieved another stool. As he did this, he also passed her some sunflower seeds. "Huh! Spiritual sunflower seeds," Chen Shuangshuang immediately exclaimed. She had quite a keen eye. Spiritual sunflowers were celestial medicines, and their seeds were more so the essence. Thus, they were as valuable as could be. Its medicinal age is only 1 billion years or so. It's not mature enough for alchemical pills, so just treat it as a snack, Ling Han said with a smile. Treat celestial medicines as a snack. Chen Shuangshuang was astounded. Although celestial medicines of 1 billion years old were indeed insufficient to be called great herbs, it was still far too wasteful to treat them as mere snack. However, she liked this. In any case, her mind was extremely simple. She was only at the third severance, and she was far weaker than Yang Xiao. Thus, since even Yang Xiao was no match for these people, what help would she be? That being the case, this fight could be dealt with by other people. She would just sit back and enjoy the show lest she made matters worse. And thus, she also sat down and started to snack on sunflower seeds as she spectated the battle. Fuck. I'm still lying here with my life and death hanging in the balance. A miserable wail sounded in Yang Xiao's mind. Chapter 2106, Truth. Chapter 2106, Truth. Delicious. Wonderful performance. So fun. Ling Han and the others could all be considered as unreliable people. They continued to snack on sunflower seeds as they spectated the battle. This was truly a good way to pass time. Meanwhile, even though there were only 5 people from young Master Bing's side in the battle, each of them was at the peak stage of the first severance. Their battle prowess was superior, so it wasn't long before they suppressed Xiao Cheng and the others. Bunch of trash. Kill them all. Die. They were brimming with killing intent, and they were ruthless as they attacked. They were going to kill Xiao Cheng and the others. Pu. 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 Blood sprayed through the air, and severed limbs danced in the sky. The battle prowess of those from the vicious bear gang was extremely uneven, so how could they rival the might of these 5 people? They instantly crumbled in defeat. After a dozen or so exchanges, 3 of them collapsed, dead. Chen Shuangxuang couldn't maintain her composure any longer. Regardless of how simple her mind was, she couldn't remain unwavering after seeing those people killed. Meanwhile, Ling Han crossed his legs with a smile, and said, "Don't worry, it's merely 2 dogs going at each other." He paused for a moment before continuing, "Your senior brother is acquainted with the group who came later, and he had initially planned to have them harass you. At that time, he would then step forward and play the hero who saved the beauties. Unexpectedly, however, some people came over to ruin his good show, which has led to the situation now." "I don't believe you," Chen Shuangxuang immediately shouted. She wouldn't allow her senior brother to be slandered like this. "Whether I'm speaking nonsense or not, I urge you to carefully think about it yourself," Ling Han said. Chen Shuangxuang carefully mulled over this, and she immediately discovered several suspicious points. For example, young Master Yang had clearly been going easy on young Master Bing's underlings at the start. This wasn't like him. Moreover, Xiao Cheng and the others had also acted like thugs when they arrived, and they had even spoken to harass them. After seeing young Master Yang on the ground, however, they had immediately changed their attitude. After eliminating all of the impossibilities, no matter how inconceivable the result was, it would still be the truth. Senior brother Yang is actually such kind of person. Despicable. Shameless. Dirty. Chen Shuangxuang was indeed simple-minded. However, this was different from being stupid. Otherwise, how could she have become a disciple of the Heavenly Saint Palace? She immediately returned to her seat. As she glanced at Yang Xiao, the anger in her mind blazed increasingly fierce. He actually wanted to steal her heart like this. How preposterous. If she were so easy to move, she would have married someone millions of years ago. "It's not this simple," Ling Han continued in a leisurely voice. "Together with the vicious bear gang go, that's right, the group of thugs who arrived later are from the vicious bear gang. Anyhow, he had already planned this out with them. After capturing you, they were going to feed you some aphrodisiac or whatnot. How shameless." Chen Shuangxuang chided in fury. She could barely contain herself from charging over to stomp on Yang Shuang's face. A look of slight astonishment spread across Yang Xiao's face. It wasn't that he wasn't deeply astonished, but rather that his muscles were far too rigid and stiff at this moment, rendering him unable to move them. There was utter shock in his mind. How did Ling Han know about this? "You're even more shameless than me," young Master Bing said as he stomped on Yang Xiao's face. "I only tried to forcefully capture them, but you, even evil people don't try to trick others like this. Accept my disdain." Yang Xiao felt so frustrated that he wanted to die. He was actually being looked down on by young Master Bing. "Ah!" Xiao Cheng suddenly roared in fury. Boom! A black aura suddenly burst forth from his body. This was neither mist nor smoke, yet it was incredibly thick and dense. This aura flooded an area of 9 meters around his body, and it almost completely covered his figure. However, his aura instantly became several times more powerful, and it was as if he were a completely different person. Ling Han instantly stood up. It wasn't Xiao Cheng's strength that surprised him. In reality, he wouldn't be surprised even if Xiao Cheng were 10,000 times more powerful. Rather, he was already very familiar with this aura. This was another cultivation system. Ling Han recalled the island that he had gone to, and he recalled how the people there would accept those who had suffered disasters at sea. They would lure these people into darkness, manipulating them into believing their so-called deity. They would introduce them to another cultivation system, and this was in order to overthrow the current heaven and earth. Some survivors had left the island long ago, and they were spreading the belief of this so-called deity in the celestial realm. They were also advocating the different cultivation system, thereby severing the foundations of the current heaven and earth. Of course, this advocation naturally couldn't occur among large and powerful sects. Instead, it would only occur among low-level cultivators. Ling Han had initially thought that this cultivation system would only spread among those under the celestial level. By the looks of it, however, he had been far too optimistic. The situation was already extremely dire. Anyhow, Xiao Cheng's transformation instantly turned the tides of the battle. Brother Jun had also defeated Yang Xiao using the element of surprise. Otherwise, with how King Tears could dominate ordinary cultivators, how could Yang Xiao have been defeated and captured? Now, Xiao Cheng was doing the same thing. Boom. Xiao Cheng was like the demon lord of a dark world. Even though he clearly hadn't summoned any power of regulations, each of his attacks was brimming with destructive power. No one dared to face his attacks head-on, and they could only flee in disarray. Xiao Cheng charged at young Master Bing, and Brother Jun immediately stepped forward in an attempt to block him. However, how could his battle prowess rival that of Xiao Cheng? He gritted his teeth, and 10 rings immediately appeared on his fingers again. With a crack, these rings exploded in unison, sending a plume of green smoke into the surroundings. However, Xiao Cheng didn't dodge or evade, and his hands stabbed at Brother Jun's chest like a razor-sharp saber. Brother Jun activated the same technique again, transforming his body into a poisonous green liquid. As long as their cultivation level was equivalent, no one could hope to wound him when he was in this form. Of course, this invincibility could only last for a brief moment. Moreover, being forced to activate the power of his divine fetus twice in a day, he was definitely going to suffer severe wounds. Pu. Xiao Cheng's hand stabbed down, causing a fountain of blood to spray into the air. Brother Jun's poisonous physique was utterly useless against him. Brother Jun wore a dazed expression as he stared at his opponent. He could feel that his heart had already been ruptured. Moreover, an indescribable power of destruction was spreading from his heart into his mind and divine sense. This was an unstoppable power. In an instant, his divine sense was completely obliterated into nothingness. He was filled with grief and vexation. Even his divine fetus had failed to block this strike. Impossible. If he had known this earlier, he definitely wouldn't have come here. He had only wanted to ride on the Long Clan's coattail, and he certainly hadn't wanted to sacrifice his life for them. Ling Han faltered for a moment before coming to a realization. Even though divine fetuses were powerful, and even though Brother Jun's poisonous physique could allow him to resist all abilities for a brief moment, these abilities only referred to the regulations of this heaven and earth. However, Xiao Cheng belonged to another cultivation system, so he naturally wouldn't be affected by this divine fetus. These were two contrasting heavens and earth. This was the standoff between two different heavens and earth. Young Master Bing hurriedly fled in fright. Fortunately, Xiao Cheng's target was only Yang Xiao, so he didn't give chase, allowing young Master Bing to escape. Xiao Cheng immediately snatched young Master Yang over, shouting, "Young Master Yang! Young Master Yang!" If Yang Xiao were able to, he would definitely leap up and furiously slap this person. "Are you fucking blind? Can't you see that I've been poisoned, and can't speak or move at all? What the fuck are you shouting about? Hurry up and find someone to treat me." However, it was a shame that Xiao Cheng's intelligence was truly limited. He continued to aimlessly shout, not knowing what else to do. "Let's go. Let's go." Young Master Bing shouted. He called on all of his debauched friends to leave. They were indeed no match for Xiao Cheng and the others. However, Xiao Cheng didn't give chase, as his mind was completely focused on how to deal with Yang Xiao. If something untoward happened to Yang Xiao, he would definitely be smacked to death by Xiong Sai. Yang Xiao naturally wasn't worth much. However, he was a chess piece and a seedling. He was someone who would overthrow the Heavenly Saint Palace in the future. He finally came to his senses at this moment, and he hurriedly lifted Yang Xiao up. He would bring him to the vicious bear gang. "Hold on," Ling Han said as he raised an arm to block him. Chapter 2107, Who's Above You? Chapter 2107, Who's Above You? "Why are you blocking me?" Xiao Cheng asked loudly. His eyes were blazing with killing intent. Whoever stopped him from saving Yang Xiao was his enemy. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, Come, let's have a chat. Have a chat? There's nothing to chat about with you, Xiao Cheng said. His voice was vicious as he continued, if you don't move aside, I'll kill you. How long have you been practicing this cultivation method? Ling Han asked. His expression was calm and amiable, and it was as if he were chatting with a friend. Piss off, Xiao Cheng roared. He immediately launched an attack at Ling Han. Ling Han casually replied with a strike of his own. Pa. Xiao Cheng's attack was immediately blocked. However, Xiao Cheng naturally wouldn't give up so easily. Peng, peng, peng. He continued to attack, yet he was unable to breach Ling Han's defenses at all. He was simply attacking in vain. Hu Niu became impatient, and she suddenly jumped out of her seat. She grabbed Xiao Cheng's neck before smashing him into the ground again and again. Peng, peng, peng. Xiao Cheng lost consciousness after just a few slams. Yang Xiao saw all of this, and his mind instantly became numb with fear. As it turned out, these people were all so powerful, yet, he had actually dared to target the three women. He had been seeking death. Fortunately, because of this reason and that, he hadn't turned on Ling Han. Otherwise, he would have definitely been killed. Now, however, he still had a sliver of hope. Ling Han glanced at Yang Xiao before reaching over with a hand. He then activated the source power of wood, and suppressed the poison in Yang Xiao's body. His cultivation level was far above that of Brother Jun, and he more so possessed the source power of wood. Thus, suppressing or even erasing this poison was as easy as could be. Who in the world are you? Yang Xiao asked after regaining the ability to speak. He immediately voiced his biggest question. How could these people possibly be Ling Zhenshue's relatives? Joining Ling Zhenshue's forces? This was far too preposterous. Only someone as simple-minded as Chen Shuangshuang would believe this. Ling Han slapped Yang Xiao's face, and smilingly said, I'm the one asking questions, not the other way around, understood? He didn't threaten Yang Xiao, yet he was filled with a dignified and formidable aura that instantly sent chills down Yang Xiao's spine. Understood. Yang Xiao hurriedly said with a nod. All right, tell me about your experiences from these past few days, Ling Han commanded in a calm voice. Yang Xiao hesitated for a brief moment. However, a cold chill instantly gripped his heart. Ling Han's gaze was far too terrifying, and it made him feel the danger of death. He hurriedly recounted his experiences from the past few days. Bastard! Chen Shuangshuang roared in wild rage. Not only did this bastard want to trick her, but he even wanted to feed her aphrodisiac. He truly deserved death. Ling Han told the Empress to calm Chen Shuangshuang down. What he cared more about was what had occurred after he left that day. There's a giant statue under the village, and as long as one sincerely prays before this statue, they'll obtain its blessing and power. Ling Han murmured. This was identical to a scent root island. They would lure people in with an easily obtainable power first, and when these people became addicted, they would convince them to abandon their current cultivation system and adopt a new one. Xiong Sai definitely harbored sinister intentions. He wanted to use Yang Xiao to infiltrate the Heavenly Saint Palace. If this occurred for generation after generation, it was truly possible that this eighth heaven force would eventually be overtaken. The hands of this dark force had already moved toward a powerful sect like the Heavenly Saint Palace. The situation was much direr than Ling Han had imagined. Ling Han casually waved his hand. Boom! Relentless flames swept by, instantly incinerating Yang Xiao into ashes. Why did you kill him? Chen Shuangshuang asked in a daze. If I didn't kill him, what would I leave him around for? Ling Han asked with a smile. Let's go, let's have a chat with the leader of the vicious bear gang. Hopefully he's a big fish. Oh, that's right, why has Xiao Jiyu suddenly disappeared at this kind of time? They set off for the small village. Ling Han had already visited this village once, so returning was naturally very easy. It only took them half a day to arrive. Peng! With a wave of his hand, Ling Han tossed Xiao Cheng forward. Xiao Cheng slid across the street of the village, carving out a deep ditch. Everyone in the village instantly stopped what they were doing to stare at Ling Han. They were all brimming with violent auras. Call your leader over, Ling Han said calmly. Haha. Where is this audacious person from? You actually dared to barge into our vicious bear village with several beauties? Are you seeking death? Someone in the village immediately said with a loud laugh. Ling Han snapped his fingers. Whoosh. A burst of sword light swept through the air, sending a column of blood into the sky. The person's head slid off from his neck. His knees buckled, and they thudded into the ground. His headless body then leaned forward and slammed into the ground, sending a plume of dust into the air. He was dead. Deathly silence fell over the village. Thunderous shouts then erupted, and the villagers were all wild with rage. An outsider had actually dared to barge over and kill someone. This was blatant provocation. Kill him. Rape his women. Boom. They all charged at Ling Han, brandishing their swords and sabers as they did so. Ling Han raised a hand. Wang. A burst of sword light burst forth, transforming into several hundred bursts of sword light as it did so. Sword light flooded the entire sky. When these bursts of sword light vanished, not a single person on the street was left alive. Ling Han strode forward. He knew where Xiong Sai lived. However, whether or not the latter was present was another question. It wasn't long before they arrived at their destination and stopped. This was because Xiong Sai was already waiting for them at his door. I'm Xiong Sai. Greetings, everyone. Xiong Sai was like an elegant and respectful gentleman as he greeted them. He didn't seem like a brute at all. May I know how I offended you to the stage of being so ruthless? Ling Han wore a faint smile as he replied, I didn't like the look of them. How's this reason? Didn't like the look of them? Good one, Xiong Sai said as he roared with laughter. As he laughed, 7 men instantly appeared, 3 to Ling Han's left and 4 to his right. Xiong Sai's expression instantly transformed into one of viciousness, and he said, I also don't like the look of you people, so I'm going to kill you all. As he said this, the 7 people lashed out in unison, attacking Ling Han and the others. These 7 people were the pillars of the vicious bear gang, and they were all young soul elites. Thus, by teaming up, they were confident that they could achieve victory. Ling Han casually raised his hand. Wang. The power of regulations transformed into a sword that slashed down at the 7 people. They instantly collapsed to the ground, and the world around them instantly became peaceful and tranquil again. Xiong Sai's vicious expression instantly vanished, and he said, Brother, let's resolve things peacefully. He was like an obedient dog, and he continued to bow at Ling Han as he spoke. Brother, how should I refer to you? However, when he straightened his body, whoosh, a burst of black light shot out from his chest, stabbing at Ling Han. This light didn't contain the power of regulations, yet it seemed like a world of its own. It contained a unique regulation, and it was as if it could sever all matter in this world. Ling Han reached forward. Wang. The column of black light ground to a halt before him, unable to advance any further. The power of darkness, he said in a faint voice. He looked at Xiong Sai, placing him under a mountain of pressure. Xiong Sai groaned as the color drained from his face. How was this person so powerful? Xiong Sai was at Yin Soul, and his opponent was also at Yin Soul. Moreover, the former had activated a secret technique, and he had more so received a blessing from the deity. Add to that an element of surprise, and he should have definitely caught Ling Han off guard. Spit it out, who's above you? Ling Han asked. Brother, I only like women. I don't like men. How can there be someone above me? Xiong Sai said. He continued to act stupid and speak nonsense. Ling Han raised his hand again. Swoosh. A burst of sword light swept forward, instantly severing one of Xiong Sai's arms. Ah! Xiong Sai screamed in agony. Chapter 2108, Astonishing Lead. Chapter 2108, Astonishing Lead. Who's above you? Ling Han asked again. His voice was extremely calm, yet it now carried a hint of killing intent. He definitely wouldn't show mercy, especially to cultivators of the other cultivation system. They were all parasites of the celestial realm. Xiong Sai wore a conflicted expression, yet his mouth remained tightly shut. You're not going to say, huh? Ling Han pondered for a moment before saying, "Then there's no option but to rape his ass." Xiong Sai was terrified upon hearing this. Of the pains that he couldn't endure, getting a *s raped was definitely one of them. However, upon recalling the punishment for betrayal, his entire body shivered in fright. His mouth remained shut. Let Nyo deal with him. Hu Nyo immediately charged over to pummel Xiong Sai, transforming him into a pig head. However, even though he wailed in pain like a sissy, he still didn't speak. "It's useless," Xiong Sai said in a feeble voice. "There's a restriction in my divine sense, and as long as I mention anything that I shouldn't, this restriction will instantly obliterate my divine sense." "Is that the case?" Ling Han naturally wouldn't believe him so easily. He placed a hand on Xiong Sai's forehead, entering with his own divine sense. Wang. His divine sense took form, becoming identical to his physical self. However, it was several times smaller. It then barged into Xiong Sai's divine sense. Strange. He immediately discovered that Xiong Sai's divine sense was indeed enveloped by restrictions. Wisps of black aura hovered in the surroundings, radiating with a sinister intent that was completely incompatible with this heaven and earth. A feeling of disgust involuntarily arose in Ling Han's mind. Upon closer inspection, Ling Han discovered that it wasn't himself that was rejecting this aura, but rather the regulations that he practiced. If one didn't practice the regulations of this world, they would be repelled by this world. They would be enemies. This black aura was extremely powerful. Even though there were only wisps of it, they possessed the ability to destroy Ling Han's divine sense. Thus, he didn't dare to rashly target it. However, would he let Xiong Sai off the hook because of this? He had finally come across a living enemy, so he would definitely squeeze some information out of him no matter what. Can source powers of heaven and earth resist this? With this in mind, Ling Han immediately activated all 4 of his source powers, sending them into Xiong Sai's body. "Ah!" Xiong Sai immediately wailed in agony. 4 columns of brilliant light burst from his body and soared into the sky. It was as if these columns of light connected heaven and earth. After being subject to the power of 4 source powers, Xiong Sai would be crippled even if he didn't die. However, Ling Han naturally wasn't worried about this. It would be fine as long as Xiong Sai didn't go crazy or die before Ling Han got any useful information. With the protection of 4 source powers, Ling Han started to assault Xiong Sai's divine sense. The wisps of black aura immediately started to counterattack, transforming into sabers, swords, axes, and much more. These weapons furiously hacked at Ling Han. Meanwhile, Ling Han controlled his 4 source powers to block these attacks. In battles of the divine sense, what was more important was one's cultivation level. Meanwhile, the 4 source powers were all at the Celestial King tier. If they weren't restricted by Ling Han's cultivation level, their power would far surpass that of Ling Han. Boom! 4-colored light flashed around Ling Han's divine sense, and he was much like a colorful battle god at this moment. He was filled with vigor as he courageously marched forward. Even though he continued to charge forward, he still couldn't help but feel astonished in his mind. This was because his 4 source powers could only destroy the obstructions before him if they worked together. The person who had created this restriction was definitely extremely powerful. When Ling Han was about to reach Xiong Sai's divine sense, the wisps of black aura seemingly realized that they couldn't block him anymore. They suddenly stopped attacking him, and they instead turned around to slash down at Xiong Sai's divine sense. Not good. Ling Han shouted in his mind. However, how could he stop this? Boom! Xiong Sai's divine sense was instantly pulverized. He couldn't withstand this power at all. Damn it! Ling Han had no option but to reach over and fish for fragments of Xiong Sai's memory. With the help of his 4 source powers, he finally managed to obtain some fragments of memory. Ancient battlefield. Extracting source power. Black Dragon King, Lin Han murmured. He had only obtained a pitiful amount of fragments of Xiong Sai's memory. However, he had still discovered a few key terms. The most shocking piece of information was naturally the plan to extract source powers. Source powers were born from the will of heaven and earth, and they more so represented the great Tao of heaven and earth. If they were destroyed, that would be a huge blow to heaven and earth. This was analogous to killing someone's son. Just how aggrieved would their parents be? Moreover, this sinister group had a history of doing such things. They had stayed at Ascent Root Island for millions of years, and this was for no other reason than to obtain the firm essence green gold. If it weren't for Ling Han coincidentally encountering a tsunami, and if it weren't for Xiao Jiyu coincidentally arriving at the right time, the results would have been difficult to predict. However, had that tsunami truly been a coincidence? Suspicion suddenly arose in Ling Han's mind. Heaven and earth possessed a soul, and the existence of heavenly tribulation was proof of this. However, heaven and earth could only operate under some kind of rules, and they couldn't overly interfere with the world. Otherwise, if everyone was dealt a celestial king-tier tribulation, who could survive? Anyhow, was the sudden tsunami that had sent him onto the island a self-saving act of heaven and earth? Ling Han suddenly felt pity for heaven and earth. They clearly possessed the ultimate power of the world, yet they even seemed inferior to measly severing mundane tier cultivators at times. Whoosh! His divine sense retreated from Xiong Sai's divine sense. Looking down, he saw that Xiong Sai was already dead. He had no physical wounds, and it was as if he were merely asleep. However, his divine sense had already been pulverized, so he was naturally as dead as could be. How was it? The Empress asked in a solemn voice. Ling Han nodded, and replied, I discovered some things. However, these things far exceed our capability. What is it? Someone asked. A figure silently appeared next to them. This was none other than Lu Herong. She truly came and went like a shadow. Ling Han pondered for a moment, and he believed that this wasn't something they could resolve. They needed to seek help from celestial kings. In the celestial realm, those who had the word king in their title were normally all celestial kings. Otherwise, they would be pummeled to death in a few days. The fragments of Xiong Sai's memory were most likely saying that there was a source power of heaven and earth in the ancient battlefield. Moreover, the sinister force was currently extracting this source power, and the elite in charge was the Black Dragon Celestial King. There had also been a source power of heaven and earth on Ascent Root Island, but the person in charge had only been an ascending origin tier elite. In other words, they had been a 9th Lotus elite. Now, however, the ancient battlefield was actually being guarded by a celestial king. The gulf in power was truly huge. There were only 3 minor levels in the ascending origin tier, yet there were 9 heavens in the celestial king tier. Ascending each level would be as difficult as ascending the heavens, and the gulf between each level was incredibly large. Thus, even Lu Herong might not be able to deal with them. Ling Han pondered for a moment before asking, Senior, do you know about the existence of the other cultivation system? The one that uses first lotus, second lotus, and so on to differentiate their cultivation levels? A look of astonishment spread across Lu Herong's face. What nonsense is this brat spouting? Under the restrictions of the regulations, cultivators can only abide by the rules of heaven and earth. How could there be another cultivation system? Ling Han was also slightly astonished. Lu Herong actually wasn't aware of the existence of the other cultivation system. Even a 4th heaven celestial king hadn't heard about this before. Aya, stop speaking nonsense with her. Hunyo placed her hands on her hips, and said, Ugly hag, Nyo orders you to immediately bring elites over. Nyo is going to fight someone. Lu Herong smiled bitterly as she shook her head. The Rock Palace was being brutally suppressed by the Four Seas Palace at the moment, so much so that even their existence was under threat. How could she bring any elites over? Even her presence here was a stretch. Removing a 4th heaven celestial king from the battle was already putting much stress on the Rock Palace's defenses. It wasn't that the Rock Palace was weak, but rather that the Four Seas Palace was far too powerful. In other words, it's up to the few of us to deal with this. Ling Han murmured. There's also Xiao Jiyu, the Empress said in reminder. Ling Han nodded in agreement. Even though Xiao Jiyu was unreliable, his strength was indeed incredible. His ordinary battle prowess could rival those at the ascending origin tier. If he unleashed the power of his celestial kingbone, he could even rival those at the celestial king tier. Then let's wait for Xiao Jiyu to return before making any plans. Chapter 2109 Another World. Chapter 2109 Another World. Fortunately, Xiao Jiyu returned after 2 days. He started to fervently speak after he returned, and it was as if he wanted to repeat everything that he had heard these past few days. This seriously exasperated Ling Han and the others. This was because all that he had heard were conversations between middle-aged women at the marketplace. Could you imagine a bone grumbling about the dear prices of vegetables at the market? Anyhow, Ling Han had already destroyed the statue under the vicious bear gang 2 days ago. It was like a totem, and it could provide its believers with power. Ling Han didn't know how it worked. Xiao Jiyu, we were all waiting for you. Let's go. Xiao Jiyu, we were all waiting for you. Let's go. Xiao Jiyu didn't miss a single word. Mimicking Ling Han was his favorite thing to do. But the problem is, where is the ancient battlefield? Lu Herong had lived for quite long, and according to her knowledge, there were a total of 3 places that could be regarded as ancient battlefields. The closest one to them was in the Rock Heaven. According to legends, an earth-shattering battle took place there 7 to 8 epochs ago. Countless celestial kings were swept up in this battle, and it was truly as brutal as could be. The Rock, the first leader of the Rock Palace and one of the most powerful immortal beasts in the world, was also killed in this battle, Lu Herong said. Just what kind of battle had that been? Even a 9th heaven celestial king had been killed. Moreover, the Rock definitely wasn't an ordinary 9th heaven celestial king. Rather, it was a ruler among celestial kings, and it could be referred to as a super elite among celestial kings. Was this related to the storm of darkness? Ling Han was astonished, and he asked, since so many celestial kings were killed, that ancient battlefield is definitely a land of treasures. Why don't people go there to search for treasures? To say nothing else, there was definitely a mountain of celestial tools, right? Lu Herong shook her head in response. She was extremely respectful toward Ling Han, and she replied, this is because no one knows where this ancient battlefield is. The chaotic battle between celestial kings warped space and time, and all of the future celestial kings suspect that this ancient battlefield has been pushed into a void that's impossible to access. Ling Han, the Empress, and the others slowly nodded in understanding. Even a single celestial king already possessed the power to crush heaven and earth, much less a battle of countless celestial kings. Moreover, there were even near-invincible celestial kings like the Rock. Then how can we find this ancient battlefield? Ling Han asked with a frown. Lu Herong could only shake her head in response. In reality, the Rock Palace was also keen to find this ancient battlefield so they could search for the rock and perfect some of their inheritances and retrieve some of their rare treasures. Just how astonishing and valuable were the treasures of 9th heaven celestial kings? They could definitely resolve the difficulty that the Rock Palace was currently facing. I can find it, Small Tower suddenly said. Ling Han was astonished, and he asked, how do you know its location? Because I was also on the battlefield at that time, Small Tower said slowly. Ling Han's head instantly went numb. Small Tower had actually participated in the battle that had killed the Rock. He hurriedly asked, how was this battle triggered? Who was fighting against whom? What happened in the end? Where are all your questions coming from? Small Tower said in annoyance. Can't I be curious? Ling Han asked with a smile. He was already accustomed to the proud Small Tower becoming angry. Small Tower hesitated for a moment before saying, all right, since your cultivation has improved, and since you already know some things, it won't hurt to reveal some secrets to you. Really? Ling Han asked in slight astonishment. He had thought that Small Tower would remain silent after ridiculing him. You're already aware that there's another force currently advocating a different cultivation system, and trying to overthrow this heaven and earth, Small Tower said. It didn't speak any nonsense, and it directly cut to the chase. Millimeter HM, Ling Han answered with a nod. In fact, the infiltration of this force already started a very long time ago, Small Tower said in a calm voice. They don't belong to this world, and they've in fact come from another world. However, if you ask me where it is, My answer to you is this: I don't know, either. In the beginning, there was only a single passageway between the two worlds. However, elites couldn't cross this passageway, because it was far too unstable. Moreover, there was also the resistive power of the realm, meaning that elites couldn't stay. Meanwhile, weaker cultivators couldn't withstand the crushing power of the passageway at all. They would be killed in an instant. Oh, that's right. By elites, I mean ninth heaven celestial kings. Linghan had been listening quietly, yet upon hearing this, his jaw instantly dropped down. This standard for elites was far too high, no? Even casting one's gaze across the entire celestial realm, few people could satisfy this criterion. In the beginning, none of the powerful beings of the celestial realm worried about this. However, this passageway slowly expanded, and it gradually became stable. Finally, on some day, even ninth heaven celestial kings and eighth heaven celestial kings could cross. However, before the celestial kings of our realm could figure out what was happening, countless elites had already charged over from the other side. At the start, our realm was taken by complete surprise, and countless beings were killed as a result. In fact, millions of celestial kings were killed. Only after several heavenly venerates interfered did the situation finally settle down. The most brutal of these battles occurred in none other than the Rock Heaven. Including the Rock, a total of 17 ninth heaven celestial kings were killed. This greatly affected the vitality of the celestial realm. Even after 8 epochs, this vitality still hasn't recovered to the level that it once was at. However, this wasn't the end. The elites from that realm continued to attack the passageway, and they yearned to beat the drums of war to invade our world again. They also had elites at the heavenly venerable tier, and they continued to stabilize the passageway to allow even heavenly venerates to pass, not just the projections of heavenly venerates. From that point onwards, the battle between the two realms has never ceased. We call this the Storm of Darkness. During this time, the force of darkness has come up with many methods in an attempt to overthrow our realm. They've infiltrated us with their own cultivation system, and this is one of the many methods. They want to destroy our world from its roots. Moreover, the deity that they believe in is a heavenly venerate from the force of darkness. Linghan was rendered completely speechless. As it turned out, this deity was genuinely a freakish being. Heavenly venerates these were beings who were transcendent above the regulations of heaven and earth. Heh! Why aren't you speaking? Linghan asked. He suddenly realized that Small Tower had stopped speaking. Small Tower's voice was extremely calm as it replied, I've already told you everything that I need to tell you. As for the things that I can't tell you, I won't tell you even if you ask. Fine. However, Linghan was already extremely satisfied. At the very least, he now knew who the enemy was. The force of darkness, assailants from another world who were attempting to destroy the entire celestial realm. Why are they doing this? Linghan asked. Do they want to enslave us? No, Small Tower answered. Its voice was solemn and filled with seriousness as it continued, this is a battle between two realms. If we lose, the other realm will engulf us. As for the beings of this realm, they'll all disintegrate and turn into ashes. Even the traces of their memories will be extinguished, and it'll be as if this realm never existed. Linghan's hair stood on ends. This wasn't a matter of 1 or 2 people dying. Rather, this was a matter of their entire realm being wiped out of existence. This couldn't happen. This definitely couldn't happen. Let's go. We can't let them obtain the source power of heaven and earth no matter what. Chapter 2110, The True Rock Heaven. Chapter 2110, The True Rock Heaven. Lu Herong had a mysterious feeling of trust for Linghan, and when he said that he could find the ancient battlefield, she didn't feel the slightest hint of doubt at all. She directly followed his lead. When entering the Rock Heaven, they didn't forget to release Chen Shuangshuang. She would return to the Heavenly Saint Palace by herself. Accompanying Linghan and the others would be far too dangerous. However, if she were by herself, no one would pay attention to her at all. Linghan also wanted to immediately go to the Heavenly Saint Palace to visit his son. However, If the force of darkness managed to obtain the source power of heaven and earth, and used it to expand and stabilize the two realms' passageway, the celestial realm would tread one step closer to destruction. Can't we also invade that realm? Ling Han asked. Since that realm could assault them, why couldn't the elites of the celestial realm launch a counterattack on that realm? Because they're more powerful. Small Tower replied. This was a simple and clear-cut answer. Regardless of where one was, might would always be right. Just how powerful are they? Ling Han asked. In our world, there can only be a maximum of 4 heavenly venerates at any one time. Currently, there are 3 heavenly venerates. In that world, there are a total of 7 heavenly venerates. Small Tower replied. This was the brutal truth. 7 heavenly venerates. The gulf between their battle prowess was far too great. Ling Han immediately shut up. If he wanted to save the celestial realm from danger, his only option was to become a heavenly venerate. Otherwise, even 9th heaven celestial kings were only cannon fodder. They couldn't even withstand a single strike from heavenly venerates. Are heavenly venerates truly this powerful? He asked in curiosity. Perhaps 10 9th heaven celestial kings can block a single heavenly venerate. Moreover, they need to be the most top-notch 9th heaven celestial kings. Small Tower pondered for a moment before adding, take note, they can only block the heavenly venerate, not rival the heavenly venerate. 9th heaven celestial kings could stand shoulder to shoulder with heaven and earth, while heavenly venerates were beings who were transcendent above heaven and earth. They weren't subject to the restrictions of heaven and earth. In other words, even if this heaven and earth is destroyed, the heavenly venerates won't be killed. Ling Han suddenly asked. Correct, Small Tower said with a nod. Ling Han came to a sudden realization. No wonder Small Tower and the large black dog would occasionally grumble about those old geezers not caring about the beings in this world. In reality, they wouldn't be killed even if calamity befell the world. In fact, they could continue to enjoy an extravagant lifestyle in the other realm. That being the case, they naturally wouldn't fight with their lives on the line. Stop, it's right here, Small Tower suddenly said. Stop, stop, stop. Ling Han hurriedly shouted. Lu Herong stopped and let everyone down. Here? She asked in slight surprise. This was a harsh expanse of land, and there wasn't even a single pebble in sight. How could the ancient battlefield be here? Small Tower? Ling Han asked in his mind. There. Small Tower said as it pointed in a certain direction. After walking for a while, they came to a stop. The surroundings were still bare. Idiot. I already told you that the ancient battlefield has been pushed into the void. Only a passageway remains here, and one can enter this passageway to find that ancient battlefield. Yaya. Xiao Jiyu suddenly called. Ling Han knew that if Xiao Jiyu wasn't mimicking someone, he would only speak if he was enraged. If he was enraged, this often signified the presence of a cultivator who had adopted the other cultivation system. Force of darkness. The celestial king bone inside Xiao Gu's body started to glow. One after another, numerous brilliant symbols lit up on his chest. He reached forward and tore at the void. This was clearly empty space, yet under Xiao Gu's hands, it was as if there genuinely was a wall that was being torn down. Lu Herong squinted her eyes, and said, regulations of space. Apart from celestial kings who had obtained Tao by practicing the regulations of space, ordinary celestial kings would only have enough time and resources to practice other great Tao after reaching the 9th heaven. Those from the Rock Palace naturally cultivated the regulations of space since they all possessed the bloodline of the rock. Moreover, they possessed the corresponding cultivation techniques and secret techniques, and this was also a reason why they were so powerful. The regulations of space were more powerful than other regulations. However, Lu Herong was shocked to discover that she couldn't understand Xiao Gu's regulations of space at all. This signified that Xiao Gu's cultivation level was higher. She was extremely curious at this moment. While he was alive, which celestial king had Xiao Jiyu been? After a brief moment, Xiao Jiyu had already forcefully torn open a passageway to the void. The space of the celestial realm was initially extremely stable. Even intense battles between ascending origin tier elites could barely open a passageway to the void. However, Xiao Jiyu had succeeded. Yiyaya! Xiao Jiyu shouted with an expression of fury. With a leap, he directly entered the passageway. Lu Herong only hesitated for a brief moment before grabbing everyone and venturing inside. It wasn't long before the entrance to the passageway started to slowly knit back together. It was as if it had never existed. Heaven and earth possessed a powerful recovery ability. Boom, boom, boom. In the void, waves of energy chaotically surged about. There was indeed no physical matter in the void. However, there were waves of chaotic energy everywhere, and these waves of energy formed a terrifying gale. Even ascending origin tier elites would be instantly torn into shreds by this gale. Fortunately, they had the protection of a celestial king. Their safety could be guaranteed. Xiao Jiyu was leading them, and his body transformed into a streak of light as his speed grew quicker and quicker. In fact, even Lu Herong started to struggle to keep up. He was merely a bone, yet his might was still so overwhelming. This was incredibly astonishing. While alive, just how powerful had this celestial king been? Fortunately, Lu Herong was a celestial king who was skilled in the regulations of space. Otherwise, if it were any other fourth heaven celestial king, they definitely wouldn't be able to keep up with Xiao Jiyu. However, even with the incredible speed of the two celestial kings, they still spent an entire 7 days and 7 nights flying through the void. Only then did a small dot finally appear in their sight. There was actually something in the void. Moreover, it hadn't been obliterated. After flying for another half a day, the small dot finally started to continually expand in size. It went from a small dot to a pancake, and finally from a pancake to an indescribably large continent. This is the true rock heaven, Lu Herong exclaimed in astonishment. During that battle, the entire rock heaven had been pushed into the void. The current rock heaven had been rebuilt on an expanse of ruined land. This was a heavenly realm, so it was naturally exorbitantly large. Even a celestial king couldn't capture this entire continent with their gaze. Whoosh! Xiao Jiyu was the first to land on the continent, and Lu Herong hurriedly followed behind him. Heh! Ling Han and the others were astonished to discover that there was no chaotic gale here. This continent has blocked the energy gale. Far too many celestial kings died here during that battle, and this place is a mass graveyard for celestial kings. Indeed, this place was a graveyard for celestial kings. Countless celestial kings were buried here, and their existence gave birth to countless possibilities. Xiao Jiyu descended into a state of confusion. Because there had been no other matter in the void, the power of darkness had been as clear as the sun. After arriving here, however, the aura of celestial kings blotted out the sun. This caused him to lose his lead. Then we'll search slowly, Ling Han said with a smile. However, just how difficult would it be to find a few people on such a vast continent? Try to cover every corner possible. Once I sense the source power of heaven and earth, I can naturally find the members of the force of darkness, Small Tower said. Ling Han nodded in understanding. This was their only option. They started to wander around the continent. Fortunately, there was a celestial king with them, so their speed was incredibly high. However, if they wanted to search every corner of the continent, this naturally couldn't be done in a single sweep. They would need to sweep around billions of times. After 3 entire years, Small Tower suddenly shouted, "Stop!" Chapter 21:11 More Than One. Chapter 21:11 More Than One. Ling Han had waited for this word for heaven knew how long. Upon hearing it, he hurriedly shouted, "Senior, it's right here." Lu Herong immediately came to a stop. A valley appeared before them, and this was a valley that was brimming with murderous aura. "It's most likely here," Lu Herong said with a nod. She was born after that chaotic battle, so she had only heard about it from the elders in the Rock Palace. She naturally wouldn't have any impressions of this place. However, the murderous aura in this place had almost become tangible. Either a great number of people or a heaven-defyingly powerful elite had died here. Otherwise, the murderous aura definitely couldn't be so overwhelming. Be careful. The force of darkness had already arrived here long ago. In fact, they might have even set up a formation that could slay celestial kings. Thus, they naturally had to be careful. The Black Dragon King was definitely at the celestial king tier, and they were simply unsure about which heaven he was at. Xiao Jiyu led the way, while Lu Herong protected the rear, keeping Ling Han, Hu Niu, the Empress, and bewitching Maiden Ru safe. As for the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, she wouldn't participate in this adventure. It's a shame that the detestable dog isn't here. Otherwise, our victory would be almost certain, Ling Han said with slight pity. The large black dog had been able to steal Celestial King Ling Miao's underwear, so he was either an 8th Heaven Celestial King or a 9th Heaven Celestial King. With such strength, he could essentially do whatever he wanted in the celestial realm. Upon entering the valley, it was inevitable that they ruined the previously stable atmosphere. Murderous aura instantly surged toward them, transforming into a sword as it slashed down at them. Shatter! Lu Herong launched a palm strike, and with the power of regulations, a gigantic light symbol formed before her, slapping at the sword. Peng! There was a dull thud as the sword was shattered into smithereens. Meanwhile, the light symbol continued to surge forward. Peng! 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 The murderous aura in its path was crushed, and only after striking the mountain did the light symbol finally come to a halt. This 4th Heaven Celestial King was powerful. However, Lu Herong didn't look happy at all. She had indeed blocked this attack with ease. However, this had only been a casually formed burst of murderous aura, yet it could already rival the attack of a 1st Heaven Celestial King. She couldn't let her guard down. Otherwise, they might be taken by surprise and fall into a perilous situation. Damn it! The strong winds have come again, Ling Han suddenly shouted in astonishment. After staying on this continent for 3 years, they were already extremely familiar with the environment here. Every 10 days or so, strong winds would rage through the continent. If this were in the outside world, such strong winds wouldn't pose much of a problem. With Lu Herong and Xiao Gu's protection, they could easily endure this strong wind. However, things were different in this valley. The murderous aura here was far too terrifying, and even the smallest wisp of murderous aura would possess devastating destructive power. After it was riled by the strong winds, even 9th Heaven Celestial Kings would frown at its power. Anyhow, the birth of these strong winds was because this continent was located in the void that was surrounded by storms of energy. Even though things were much better on the continent, they still had to face these strong and destructive winds once every 10 days. At this moment, a wall of wind that measured a whopping 3,000 meters in height violently surged over. It was as if this wall of wind would obliterate anything and everything in its path. That cave. Hurry! There was a cave in the mountainside, and its mere existence signified that it had endured heaven knew how many waves of these strong and destructive winds. This time would be no different. They hurriedly dashed into the cave. In just a moment, the wall of wind was already upon them. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The murderous aura transformed into all kinds of weapons, violently tearing at the surroundings. Gashes started to appear on the mountainside, yet surprisingly, the valley wasn't flattened and destroyed. This is purely a windstorm of regulations. It doesn't possess much power, Lu Herong explained. If this windstorm only possessed regulations, it would be most destructive toward life forms. However, it would be a completely different story for inanimate objects. This was analogous to how a drop of poison could easily kill someone, but if it were dripped onto stone, there would be no effect at all. There were only gashes on the mountain wall because of the force of the strong winds. Of course, this valley was definitely as sturdy as could be due to the existence of the murderous aura. It was only because there were wisps of murderous aura in the strong winds that the winds could even leave gashes in the mountain. Otherwise, the winds would do absolutely nothing to the mountains. Blades of wind slashed into the cave, yet they were all easily blocked by Lu Herong and Xiao Jiyu. They didn't face much danger. However, the strong winds continued, and the blades of wind also continued to rush into the cave. It was as if tens of thousands of 1st Heaven Celestial Kings were attacking them in unison. If it weren't for the humongous gulf between each heaven of the Celestial King tier, Lu Herong and Xiao Jiyu would have definitely been overwhelmed by these blades of wind. After an hour, the strong winds finally calmed down. They would only rise again in 10 days. They left the cave, only to see that the valley had already returned to a state of calm. Murderous aura continued to swarm, and it was as if it were steam. When they walked out, the murderous aura in the valley immediately reacted, transforming into sabers and swords that slashed over. However, they were all easily blocked by Lu Herong. The valley was colossal, and the group could see traces of battle everywhere. This valley actually wasn't obliterated by the chaotic battle between the celestial kings? Ling Han asked in curiosity. This place is the Azure Origin Valley, Lu Herong said after pondering for a moment. According to rumors, a powerful figure refined their source treasure here. Thus, the entire valley was refined by a paramount regulation. Even if a ninth heaven celestial king attacks this valley with all their might, they can only shatter a few stones. Powerful figure? Ling Han asked. Heh. Lu Herong didn't explain. Heavenly venerate, right? Ling Han thought in his mind. Otherwise, how could a ninth heaven celestial king only manage to shatter a few stones? Hang on. Small Tower suddenly shouted. It faltered for a moment before saying, why is this source power of heaven and earth so strange? Perhaps it's been damaged by the force of darkness. Impossible. Small Tower said as it swayed from side to side. Their aim isn't to damage the source power of heaven and earth. Instead, they want to use the source power of heaven and earth to corrode and weaken the passageway between the two realms. As such, damaging the source power of heaven and earth will be completely pointless. Then what's wrong? Ling Han asked in curiosity. Unless. Small Tower's voice was surprisingly filled with emotion. What did you figure out? You have to realize, source powers of heaven and earth are limited in number. Moreover, some source powers of heaven and earth are able to achieve Tao by themselves and become celestial kings. Small Tower suddenly started to talk about unrelated matters. Ling Han nodded and said, I know about this. However, even so, of 1,000 celestial kings, perhaps only one possesses a source power of heaven and earth, Small Tower continued. Celestial tools were also rare, yet around 1 in 10 celestial kings would possess a celestial tool. Source powers of heaven and earth were even rarer, and only around 1 in 1,000 celestial kings would possess them. Ling Han came to a sudden realization. You're saying that tens of thousands of celestial kings died back then, so at least 10 source powers of heaven and earth would have also died with them. After countless years of nurturing, these source powers of heaven and earth should have already been reborn. Ling Han didn't know whether reborn was the right word to use. However, this was the word that he found fitting. That's right, Small Tower replied. In a rare turn of events, Small Tower didn't tease Ling Han. Instead, it started to sway about with a solemn expression. This was Small Tower nodding its head. Ling Han's expression also changed. 10 source powers of heaven and earth. If they allowed the force of darkness to obtain 10 source powers of heaven and earth at once, just how much damage would be caused to this heaven and earth? No wonder Ascent Root Island had only been guarded by an ascending origin tier elite, while this continent was being guarded by a celestial king. There were 10 source powers of heaven and earth. Perhaps there was 1 or 2 more than this, or perhaps there was 1 or 2 fewer than this. They definitely couldn't allow the force of darkness to succeed. Chapter 2112 Celestial Bell. Chapter 2112 Celestial Bell. Ling Han's heart thumped against his chest. If the elements of the source powers of heaven and earth were all different, it was extremely likely that he could obtain the 9 source powers of heaven and earth he needed at once. He could then create 9 divided souls, which would allow him to ascend to the immortal palace tier in the strongest manner possible. If he succeeded, he would most likely be no weaker than Ji Wuming. This is a huge deal, Ling Han exclaimed in his mind. Moreover, not only could he obtain source powers of heaven and earth, but even Hu Niu and the Empress could obtain 1 to 2 source powers of heaven and earth each. At that time, their battle prowess would also rise explosively. He voiced these thoughts to Hu Niu and the Empress, and their heartbeats also involuntarily quickened. Obtaining source powers of heaven and earth was a matter of fate. Most importantly, however, if one couldn't even come across source powers of heaven and earth, how could they test their fate? Stinky Bone, hurry up! Hunyo immediately shouted in impatience. Xiao Jiyu was leading the way, and upon hearing this, he involuntarily turned around and repeated, Stinky Bone, hurry up! Whoosh! Before he had even finished speaking, a gust of wind swept over and chopped his head off. However, he surprisingly continued to speak even as his head fell to the ground. This was an uncanny sight, and it was enough to make one's hair stand on ends. At the same time, however, it also made them want to laugh. Xiao Jiyu blocked the blade of wind with one hand, and he picked up his head and casually placed it back on his neck with another. While he did this, his advance didn't falter at all. Look! As they walked past a canyon, a green bell suddenly appeared before them. This green bell was extremely large, and it measured 9 meters in height and 6 meters in circumference. Judging from its appearance, it was most likely forged from bronze. Right now, its surface was filled with green rust, and it was radiating with an aura of ancient age. With just a glance, Ling Han and the others all felt an overwhelming pressure washing over them. Their bodies became weak, and they could barely remain standing. Celestial King Tool! Lu Herong exclaimed. The rock palace was a powerful force, so even with its dire situation right now, she could still possess a celestial tool. However, celestial tools were limited by the cultivation level of their owner, and they were also dependent on the skill level of their creator. She had refined her own celestial tool, and when it was activated, it could even unleash a might that surpassed that of hers. It was because of this that celestial tools were so valuable. However, standing before the bronze bell, Lu Herong instantly felt as if she would be obliterated by a single shake of the bell. Even though this was only a feeling, Lu Herong firmly believed in her senses. Not only was this bell a celestial tool, but it was even a celestial tool above the 7th heaven. Otherwise, it couldn't exert such overwhelming pressure on her. Apart from Xiao Jiyu, they all felt a strong urge to obtain this bell. After all, celestial king tools were far too valuable. However, to say nothing of the others, even Lu Herong didn't dare to near the bell at all. They could only stare at it from afar. This caused them to feel extremely exasperated. Such a valuable treasure was sitting right before their eyes. They walked around, trying to better observe the celestial tool. However, after taking 2 steps, they were astounded by what they saw. This bronze bell was actually damaged. This was especially clear from the side. There was a hole on the bell, a hole that ran all the way from one end to the other. This hole was caused by a punch, Lu Herong suddenly said. Her face then became pale. This was far too terrifying. Not only had this person's fist rivaled a celestial tool, but it had even penetrated it. What was divine metal? This was the strongest material in the world. Even celestial kings couldn't damage divine metal with their bare hands. If they wanted to damage it, they had to rely on the power of regulations to refine it. Celestial tools that were forged from divine metal also maintained this property. However, reality was sitting right before them. Celestial tools could also be penetrated by bare fists. This is the Bell of Time, the celestial tool of the eternal celestial king. Lu Herong yelped in astonishment. The eternal celestial king had been a paramount 9th heaven celestial king who had lived for heaven knew how many epochs. Originally, he could have lived for countless more epochs. However, 8 epochs ago, he suddenly vanished without a trace. Now, his celestial tool had appeared before them, and it had more so been damaged. What did this signify? The eternal celestial king had already been killed 8 epochs ago. Not only was the ancestral rock killed here, but even the eternal celestial king was killed here, Lu Herong said with emotion. There was confusion and daze in her voice. The ancestral rock, the eternal celestial king, and the previous leader of the rock palace had all been 9th heaven celestial kings. Moreover, they had all been paramount among the celestial kings. However, what did this matter? They had still died in the end. For what reason was she cultivating? Even ninth heaven celestial kings appeared no less vulnerable than her. Even the celestial tool of a ninth heaven celestial king was penetrated by a single punch. The power of this person, Ling Han murmured. Heavenly Venerate, the Empress, Hu Niu, and bewitching Maiden Ru exclaimed in unison. Only heavenly venerates could possess such mystical power. No wonder the force of darkness didn't take this celestial tool. Even though it's damaged, it's still a paramount treasure. Because the martial intent of the ninth heaven celestial king still remains, no one below the level of eighth heaven celestial king can hope to obtain it, Ling Han said with a nod. In other words, the celestial king here is definitely below the eighth heaven, the Empress added. This could be guaranteed. However, this didn't make them feel any easier. Even if they were a fifth heaven, sixth heaven, or seventh heaven celestial king, they could still easily suppress Lu Herong. The only unknown factor was Xiao Jiyu. No one knew what his limit was. Let's go, Lu Herong said. She had already come to her senses. The enemy was right before them, so how could she hesitate now? If she became a ninth heaven celestial king, she could resolve the challenging situation that the Rock Palace was currently in. This was her motivation to become stronger. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew by, and as it traveled through the hole in the bronze bell, it made the sound of ghosts wailing. The gust of wind then took form, transforming into a man who was dressed in green. He was handsome and mighty, and he more so possessed an indescribable demeanor that made one want to yield. The man in green swept his gaze across Ling Han and the others. His eyes were like divine swords, and they possessed a peerless divine might. Lu Herong hurriedly stepped forward. Wang! A sword appeared in her hands, and the symbols on them all lit up in unison. Whoosh! She rapidly retreated, taking Ling Han and the others with her. In the blink of an eye, she had already retreated hundreds of meters, all the way to the mountainside. A gust of wind had traveled past the bronze bell, transforming into the figure of a person. Afterward, a single glance from this person had forced a mighty fourth heaven celestial king to retreat in haste. Gasp! This was far too incredible. My respects to this senior. Lu Herong respectfully greeted the man with her hands still on the hilt of her sword. This was most likely the eternal celestial king, the owner of the bronze bell. Of course, this figure was merely formed from the martial intent left in the bell. The eternal celestial king had already died several epochs ago. The man in green wore a dazed expression, and he appeared slightly confused and perplexed. Ling Han instantly came to a realization. The Bell of Time had naturally been forged by the eternal celestial king. Thus, its tool spirit was also born from the eternal celestial king's intent. As such, even though the eternal celestial king had already been dead for several epochs, it was still able to form his figure and replicate some of his might. However, because the celestial tool had been damaged, the tool spirit had most likely been crippled as well. Because of this, the figure that it created was also in a dazed state. Wang. At this moment, Xiao Jiyu suddenly started to glow. It was the celestial bone. Old Bone Demon, the man in green suddenly exclaimed. Clarity instantly returned to his eyes. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,